All right, now that all the good times are over, we're back to the world as it is, a mess. And to help us sort through all this, in fact, even add some more trouble to it, is Larry. He is not the cable guy, folks. He is Larry, the contractor guy. There's a difference. The cable guy's better looking.
That's not nice, but hey, you know, we both wear ball caps. I drive a pickup. I assume he does too.
Yeah, that makes three of us. All right. So we have much to do and probably never enough time to do it in. But as you go through this continuum, you were thinking about just taking, a little side street here to address what might have been going on?
Just very briefly, you sent me an email about, the coming conflict. And there was a couple of attachments, PDFs, from an Army officer, Major Ralph Peters, who is in intelligence. Apparently has a master's degree in international relations.
He's a heck of a writer, isn't he? I mean,
what's that?
He's a heck of a writer.
He's a good writer. He really is. But I really, really strongly disagree with his conclusion.
I know. But
the reason I brought it up is this guy represents the kind of smug arrogance, the almost imperialistic, imperialistic outlook of certain elements of our military and our power structure in the United States. And the reason I brought it up is it reminds me a great deal of the way that Hitler and the German army just kind of looked down on the rest of the European powers, and in particular the power that really kicked them in the butt, and that's the Soviet Union, which is now gone back to being called Russia.
All right, let me hold on a second. A couple of things real quick, just so people can get caught up to speed. One, those two PDFs to which you address your comments.
Right.
I'll put up with the link.
Right.
Also, you got something that was sent from Liam real recently. I don't know if you got that before you left work Friday, talking about how everybody arms everybody else before they go in and fight them.
Yeah.
Did you see that one at all, Larry?
No, I don't think I did.
Right.
I don't remember seeing that.
Okay, and I didn't send it to you because either you got it on Friday and then you weren't going to see it until Monday, so I couldn't get it to you.
Yeah, no problem.
But it's the same thing. Check it out. And also, I would like to say to folks, too, if you've not read the PDF that I saved, and that is the Unholy Alliance, this has got nothing to do with Lavenda. It's got to do with, at that time, recently released, previously before, top secret, whatever you want to call it, documents that revealed that DuPont and General Motors and Ford all helped the German war machine prior to World War II. So I'm going to put that, and I'm going to put that in.
Frankly, all the vehicles that the German Army drove were made by General Motors and Ford.
The other thing I want folks to realize, too, is that Larry's addressing his comments to something that was sent around by Jeff Long, who, when Jeff Long sends stuff around, I pay attention. I think you do too.
Yeah. Jeff was apparently, from what I understand on the show, is a former intelligence operative himself, I believe in the Air Force. And when he sees something of this nature coming from intelligence, apparently it caught his eye.
Yeah,
and it's kind of giving us an idea of what at least the Army is thinking, the Army intelligence is thinking.
What I like about Jeff is that, he was there, he was happy for the time, he served and such. Mm-hmm. He stays somewhat in their vision because every so often he gets job descriptions sent by him, and that's why this is so rich in that Jeff told us over a year ago that the United States military had a presence enough in Somalia, specifically in the Horn of Africa, that they were now going ahead and posting jobs for civilians. And he got one of them. He gets them all the time. And that's when he said, can you believe it, that they are now so entrenched that they feel safe enough to bring over cities and everyone else for all the other things that have to take place. What I liked about that RT.com article, and I'll put that link up too, Larry,
sure.
and that is, unlike some of these other sites who say they've got it together, like globalrepuke.ca, those guys were hip to the fact that, yes, we're in Somalia. And a whole lot of other places, and that's the genesis, I guess, for where you're going to go with this. But I'm going to ask you one question. To bring it down to a true analogy, a level analogy, and you used the word imperial, and I think you were imperialism, but I think you were going for two other things also. An imperial attitude and an imperious attitude. Like, we ain't going to get a scratch on us. But let me ask you this. The mindset of Peters
Right.
Now, you can't equate it with Hitler, because Hitler would be like Obama. You know what I mean? Who would you take?
And I don't think Peters is definitely, I doubt seriously he's a fascist. He talks a lot about democracy in here and about, how great American democracy and freedom are, blah, blah, blah.
But let me ask you.
The fact is he's serving a war machine, which is, attempting to impose the American will, a Pax Americana, if you will, across the world. And something that bothers me about it is the last paragraph. He says, the next century will indeed be American, but it will also be troubled. He wrote this in 97. We will find ourselves in constant conflict, much of it violent. The United States Army is going to add a lot of battle streamers to its flag. Oh, really? We will wage information warfare, but we will fight with infantry, and we will always surprise those critics, domestic and foreign, who predict our decline. That is, the Bible says that pride goeth before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. And all I can say is, if you're counting on the American culture, which has a great knowledge of digital technology and is able to use digital technology, and we're ahead of the world in information technology, which is what he's saying over and over again in this article. If you're relying on that, you really have to be a little bit blind to the fact that we are running around over in Eurasia, and we are poking at the Russian bear, and we are also messing with the Chinese dragon. And sooner or later, those two countries which have high-tech weaponry are going to get to the point where they are going to fight back. We're going to, in my opinion, we're going to keep pushing them until we find ourselves in a war against people that are advanced technologically. Maybe not as advanced technologically as the United States, but how advanced do you have to be? The Russians already have ICBMs, and the Chinese have at least mid-range nuclear missiles. I mean, they can arm their missiles with nuclear, chemical, and biological warheads and give us an awful lot of problems. And this just seems to me to be, saying, here's what he says about culture, and it's kind of, here's American culture is so superior. Culture is fate. Countries, clans, military services, and individual soldiers are products of their respective cultures, and they are either empowered or imprisoned. The majority of the world's inhabitants are prisoners of their cultures, and they will rage against inadequacies they cannot admit, cannot bear, and cannot escape. The current chest-thumping of some Asian leaders about the degeneracy, weakness, and vulnerability of American culture is reminiscent of nothing so much as of the ranting of the Japanese militarists on the eve of the Pacific War. I do not suggest that any of these Asian leaders intend to attack us, only that they are wrong. Liberty always looks like weakness to those who fear it. That it sounds really nice, but we're not dealing with people and cultures and nations in the form of the Soviet Union, the Russians and the Chinese. These are two cultures that have developed high-tech weaponry and can really cause a great deal of harm to us. And I think we are going to make the same mistake. The Russians really had a big surprise for the Nazis when they were trying to get into Moscow, and they were being more or less stymied by the weather. And then the Russians attacked. They brought in their Siberian troops, very tough, well-trained troops, and they had the T-34 tank, which was the best tank in World War II. It was a well-engineered tank that was faster, more maneuverable, better armed, and had a better cannon than the tanks that the Nazis had in their Panzers. And they got a big surprise there, and they got their butts kicked quite a few miles away from. They were pushed quite a few miles back away from Moscow by these troops and by those tanks. You're not dealing with people there who are pushovers. And, I'm not trying to say that the American military isn't powerful. It is. But if we keep running around the world and keep pushing things the way that we are, we may very well meet the same fate that the Nazis did.
All right, now hold on, because, again, you piled up a bunch of things I want to ask you about, okay?
Sure.
How dare you speak 7 minutes straight on my show? What do you think? This is your audio? No. I mean, don't Collins Brothers me, man.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't Bogart this show, bro.
Hey, man, I didn't say anything about monetizing the eschaton.
Yeah, okay, well, what is it? What was it? Oh,
I don't really know what that means,
I don't know,
but, I like the way it sounds.
Or Sturmendagen, I don't know. Anyway. First, I want to bring you back to one thing, and that is equate Peters to somebody else in the Nazi hierarchy who would run his mouth about and be so imperious about their force. Well, are we looking at maybe Goebbels or...
I think Goebbels did it. Goering did it. Hitler, of course, himself did it. Hitler said at one point that he was trying to get across to the German people and to his officers. He said that the Russians, that Russia was basically a dilapidated house or something to that effect. He says all you have to do is just kick the door in and the whole rotten edifice will fall down upon itself. He was so arrogant and so dismissive of the Slavic people in general, and especially the Russians, that they went ahead and attacked at the wrong time of year, and they did not equip their troops with winter clothing, and they did not equip their vehicles with the correct type of lubricants. They were using oil that was
got a little thick in the wintertime.
Yeah. And I mean, they put themselves in a position to get their butts kicked when the Russian winter came. First came the mud from the rains in the fall, and then the Russian winter kicked in, and they were just basically immobile. The Russians didn't have any problems. They knew how to deal with it. They knew how to dress for it. They knew how to fight in that kind of weather, and they had the right kind of vehicles with the right kind of engines and lubricants.
But the reason I bring this up is because, and why I said to you. It would not be apples and apples if you correlated Peter's mindset with that of Hitler, because Hitler obviously was the chancellor. I mean, we'd have to look at him and the president of the United States. However, but be that as it may, and here's another interesting thing too. The reason why I look at some of these individuals who came to some kind of primacy, and don't you find it interesting that usually they are in the military or equate themselves with the military, so when they come up to the top, the military, which in the United States usually looks, and rightfully so, as all presidents as you ain't shit, right? There, he's one of your own. Mm-hmm. However, I'm thinking, I don't know about, what do you want to call the guys? I mean, like Goebbels, Himmler, and all those other guys. You want to call it his cabinet? I don't know. The insider's fine. But I think Hitler was used deliberately and knew that he was going to trash the German army in Russia, just like Napoleon got the orders from the dark side to go ahead and try to duke out with Russians again in the wintertime. Are you nuts? So here's what I'm asking you. I watched, actually a couple of years ago, Larry, I watched a military history thing about, big goofs in wars. And one of the things was Hitler's, first of all, why are we doing this in the fall? Because guess what's coming real soon,
Yeah, exactly.
And secondly, they also claimed that Hitler had no exit strategy if the worst happened. Therefore, everybody got abandoned, much like Napoleon abandoned the Grand Army. But what I mean is, Hitler and Napoleon and heads of state are in the know. The others aren't. And what I mean is, there had to be a time when finally, and I think there's a movie out just now, or for a while, it's been out, Valkyrie, and where you see some kind of a dramatization of the coup against Hitler. Those guys had to know that the fix was in. So what I mean is, take the military separate from the guy who's going to go ahead and become a traitor, which would be Hitler, which would have been Napoleon, which would be any of our presidents. And my point is, this didn't happen by accident. And if you look at it too, I'm sure, and you're going to tell me, that those warriors, like Peters is, warriors are about making war. That's what they do. They're not happy when there's no war, just like guys who run taxi cabs ain't happy unless they're out there making some money. You don't want to sit around for...
You can't make rank, you can't move up in the military unless there is a war, generally.
So, and I'm going to ask you this. What is your opinion about Peters in this sense? I look at him as, if you got to go to war, you want this junkyard dog on your side. You tell me.
Well, if you want to go to war, you want an intelligent very deep-thinking person on your side helping you with your strategy. And you want somebody in intelligence like Peters. My problem with it is building this elaborate structure in your mind where American culture is just going to overwhelm the rest of the world. There's some validity to it. American culture is a powerful force in the world. But, it's not like our enemies or those who are potential enemies don't have the ability to inflict a great deal of harm on the United States. And I think sometimes, if you'll forgive the phrase, we're kind of whistling past the graveyard and literally whistling past it.
I agree. But when I look at Peters, I look at somebody. I find his writing enticing because he's a good writer. He's obviously very intelligent, and you can tell when he starts writing. It reminds me of, and I hate to trivialize this. If you ever saw Chuck Bednarik in any interviews with NFL films, how Chuck would get it.
The same thing I did with Johnny Unitas.
Well, they would start off calm, and they would get into it, and by the time it was over, they were almost out of their chair wanting to beat up somebody because they're psyched.
Yeah, pumped up, yeah.
So when I read Peters, I can see Peters lifting out of his chair as he's writing this, come on.
Yeah.
You've
got to have that attitude. You can't be namby-pamby about things. You have to really believe in your cause and what you're doing, because you're talking about putting people in harm's way, very much literally in harm's way. And you're talking about, the idea that there is kill or be killed. And so you have to be somewhat pumped up. You can't be sitting around just, well, gosh, I don't know if we can do it or not. And it's a tough position to be in. But I think what I see here, and this is just my opinion, but what I see here is a bit of unreality slipping in there. We are going to have conflicts, no doubt, but, when we're pushing things, when we have all I was looking at that chart of all the military bases that the United States has all over the world, including a ton of them in Germany and Japan, our former enemies, that we dispatched them over 65 years ago, 67 years ago, and yet we still have military bases there. We're all over the world. We are an empire. We have our military all over the world. Just sooner or later, one thing that bothers me is where are we going to find the troops? We're being stretched very thin, which is the same thing that happened to the Third Reich. They were having to fight a war on two fronts. They were stretched too thin. They simply couldn't do it. Napoleon couldn't do it, and Hitler couldn't do it either.
All right, then let me ask you this question, though. Now, we're going to run with what you've said.
Yeah.
And considering if that is the objective, shall we say, okay, now how do we go about this? What I want to ask you is, if we're going to get into a duke out on the Eurasian continent, which I believe, and I think you believe fully we are.
Yes.
The thing is, what is the objective? In other words, are we going to occupy? Are we just going to kick ass, take names, and say, don't do that again and go back? And it's always been said, and it's been true since, before the Common Era, that if you want to occupy, you have to have boots on the ground.
Exactly.
I look at what Peters wrote, and I think you divine the same thing. I think he's made it very clear that when he talks about a mobile, agile, more effective, and lighter force, that they're going to do a lot more via drones, which is what that RT.com article was bringing to the fore. My point is, you didn't win with Vietnam dropping as much ordnance as you possibly could drop on those people. It did not work.
Right.
So what is the idea when you get into the final fandango on the Eurasian continent? Do you want to occupy, or do you just want to keep the bad guys away? What is the objective? Because if you don't put boots on the ground, all you're going to do is bring hell from above, and that usually doesn't work no matter who you're bombing.
Well, we're in a really bad position because we don't have enough boots. Or at least we don't have enough people to occupy those boots, or at least not in our current state.
But do you think Peters is saying we don't need them necessarily? Is he hinting?
I think in a way he is.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in a way he is, and that doesn't make sense to me. One thing that's come up in the news lately is something I've talked about on this show before, is the Iranians are sitting right there on the east bank of the Persian Gulf and on the Straits of Hormuz, and they're sitting there with tons of missile batteries and thousands of missiles that they can rain down on anybody coming through the Straits of Hormuz. This is not an empty threat, and these people, to start with, I think there's an attitude among Americans, or a lot of Americans, that people in the Muslim or Islamic world, I should say, are basically low-tech, maybe even some people consider them to be people of lower intelligence. Well, that's really not true. They are not as advanced technologically as we are, but they know how to use the money that they get from their oil revenues. And the Iranians a long time ago started buying anti-ship missiles from the Russians and the Chinese. The Russians have an anti-ship missile called I forget how to pronounce it in Russian, but it's called a Sunburn missile. It is the most advanced, according to what I've read in a couple of sources, it is the most advanced anti-ship missile in the world. And the United States Navy really doesn't have an effective means of knocking that thing down. That missile could take out an American aircraft carrier, or certainly with several of those being fired, they could take out American aircraft carriers. They could take out probably the majority of a task force with those. They don't have to really do that to start a real problem in the Persian Gulf. All they have to do is fire a few of them at an oil tanker, and they will stop the flow of oil from that area, the Persian Gulf, which is about 20% of the oil in the world coming through there. Could create a big problem. All they'd have to do is sink a tanker there. There's an area, the Straits of Hormuz is about 30 some odd miles wide, I think maybe 37 miles wide. Relatively narrow entranceway. The area of the Straits of Hormuz where the oil traffic goes through is about 2 miles. There's like a channel type situation where it's deep enough for them to go through, and it's about 2 miles wide going in and about 2 miles wide going out. So you got an area there of about 4 miles. If you can effectively block up that area going in and going out, you can raise a whole lot of hell. Now, of course, the United States could, just using its nuclear submarines, its attack submarines could, not attack submarines, but the boomers, they could blast, Iran off the map if they wanted to, and Iran's aware of that. They could also, using conventional weapons, blow the daylights out of those missile batteries. But any way you look at it, if they decide, if they feel threatened enough to want to start something there in the Persian Gulf, they can do it. They have the technology to do that, and it doesn't matter about their culture and how much they lack in freedom and American culture. We'll send them a bunch of Rambo videos, blah blah blah. I mean, it really doesn't matter, because at that point in time, we will be screwed blue and tattooed, because our economy is going to go into a tailspin. I mean, and gasoline that costs $3.50 or whatever a gallon right now will go up to several dollars more per gallon within a week, and that's going to cause an awful lot of chaos if that takes place. And we recently had one of the ministers of the Iranian government making noise about how they would not allow another, or that they're warning us not to send another carrier into the Persian Gulf. Well, we will be sending another carrier into the Persian Gulf, and so it may get down to that. Again,
all right. I had relationships when I was in school and when I was at Fairleigh Dickinson.
Uh-huh.
One Iranian became a friend of mine.
Right.
And got deported when he was trying to get into medical school.
Yeah, you told me that story.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody should have been here, it was Abbas Kalani, and he's gone.
Right.
His brother was his brother was the Pele of Iranian soccer.
Right.
We did not know what happened to him because his family were Shah backers. Mm-hmm. And of course, when Khomeini did his thing, we figured that they would all be dead. Thankfully, he had a cousin in Jackson, New Jersey, who told us that, in fact, the boss is okay. And the trade-off was he wanted to go to medical school. He had to work in a MASH unit during the Iraqi War. And the last we know that he's okay. Now, what I'm saying is this. Whenever I look at everybody getting crazy in Iran, it's like that's what they choose to show you. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking that most Iranians who are anywhere near cosmopolitan really don't want any of this.
No, they don't. From
Ahmadinejad.
Everything I've seen and what I understand, I've even talked to somebody, who is Iranian. He's an American citizen now, but he was saying his relatives and people that he knows over there, they don't want to fight the United States or anybody else for that matter. They just want a decent life like everybody else.
Right.
And the religious fanatics and the in Ahmadinejad, whatever.
My day job.
Yeah,
okay.
They don't back that stuff, but there's nothing they can do about it. They run, it's a dictatorship, and there's not a lot they can do.
But that
getting out in the street didn't work.
But that he's in on the plan too, just like Hitler was.
Right.
My point is that he goes out, he makes comments, he quote supposedly inflames all these Americans, mm-hmm. and that's his job. I had to laugh about it. Anybody who wears like that 1950s like zip up car jacket,
a Nehru jacket, yeah.
Yeah, well, and he comes in, he says a couple of things, and everybody goes nuts, and he leaves, and he's going.
Yeah. I mean, he's straight out of Central Casting. I mean, he makes a great Middle Eastern dictator.
Yeah.
He's got the look. He's got the shifty
I'll tell you what.
Eye thing. And he's got it all going down.
Any leaders here's what I dig about Middle Eastern leaders. They don't wear ties. I think that's so cool.
I do too. I mean, it's kind of constricting,
Yeah, they come out like looking at going to go bowling. And I think that's great. I mean, seriously, look at him.
Can you imagine that Ahmadinejad and his bowling team?
Yes, because I'm thinking that whoever's pin setting behind the wall better make sure that everything goes down when Ahmed throws his ball. Ooh, infidel! That was an 8-11 split. Are you crazy? Wait, there's only 10 pins. Yeah. I'm sorry, 7
and
10.
they look around and make sure nobody's looking and they grab a beer.
Yeah. And we're making noise up by the by where everybody sits so that the guy can kick the next pin down. Oh look, it finally went down. Because we want Ahmed to be happy. But but here's what I'm saying, and I'm going to bring this, and we'll bring this back into the arena of what we've been talking about. Sure. But I don't know that it's central only to that some of us who understand or actually believe. I think a lot of people understand but don't believe that you can have leaders who are handled, and the poor Slavs who fight the wars, and the military who really believes until they finally clue it out that this thing is rigged. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of scenario we have, and it doesn't make a difference in a sense how it goes down, but the point is it's going to bring about war, and people are going to get killed. Mm-hmm. Now,
it's destined for that. And that kind of brings me to my next point as to where this is all coming from.
Okay.
And this isn't coming from human beings.
No,
this is coming from spiritual forces of darkness. That's the origin of these things. And that's why we have the problems that we have with warfare and poverty and disease and on and on and on. It's because of spiritual warfare and because of the forces of darkness and their leader, Lucifer, whom we know as Satan.
Well, people listen to this and they don't want to go with that. I understand.
That's tough, but we're going to keep telling them.
But this is what sends people to believe all this other crap that's written about it as if it's a real, organic, and undetermined end. And then you get all the pundits that get out there and talk about it. And it's like, and they
go vote in Iowa.
Yeah, I liked it, though. That was great. I tell you what Kerouac wrote about Iowa was so pretty. He said in his last paragraph, On the Road, in Iowa, I know the children are crying where they let the children cry. It is like that. It is. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, the old story about, I kept my doors unlocked. Well, Iowa is the last place that I left my doors unlocked. Yeah. In the hope that...
the Midwest in general, although it's really changed a lot, I'm sure. I don't think you could equate Iowa with, say, Ohio or Illinois, but I think everything I've seen about the Midwest, or at least Iowa, I should say, in recent years, it seems like the way America used to be. It's really a lot more like Leave It to Beaverland, the good America, or the way I thought of America being such a good place, I don't know anybody from Iowa. I've met one person. I dated a girl from there once, and she was talking about how Iowa was, such a great place to live. Because, it was, kind of safe and nice, and and that's I think kind of along the lines of what you're talking about.
Well, when I was in Iowa, I was a graduate assistant baseball coach at Iowa State in Ames. Mm-hmm. And the reason I didn't leave my doors locked is I was so poor. I was hoping somebody would break in and leave something. I'm serious, man. I lived on 505.
Like your Radio Shack equipment, right?
Well, in those days, I had to write articles on a typewriter. Can you imagine that? Not even an electric typewriter.
Clack, clack.
You got it.
Yeah.
So at any rate, 505.
Well, we're sharp. We're really being nice to Iowa.
But I mean, it's true. Iowa's cool.
I like Iowa.
505 Duff Avenue. That's where I lived in Ames.
Yeah.
Anyway, who cares? But you raised something, and I'm not going to give anything away. I think when people listen to this audio, it'll be too late. But I'm doing a live show tonight, the last one I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I want to bring something up about the American psyche, including all of us, the 1%ers who get it inside the 1%ers in America who are patriots and supposed to get it. Well, they don't. But this whole idea, and my point is, and I'll just make this statement, there is no such thing in reality as freedom. It is a mental concept that has been emblazoned in all our brains.
Right.
And when you really take a look at that place we're supposed to get back to, it really doesn't exist.
Right.
It really doesn't. And you and I know it. I mean, we all would like to go back to our childhood, and I'm really guilty on all charges with that. But I understand this. It sucked back then.
Yeah.
But it's just that I don't want it to suck in my brain.
Well, we just didn't know it. We just didn't understand it, and we couldn't see it. And it wasn't as
bad
in your face back then.
No, it wasn't. That is true. But everybody's thinking in America that we have to get back to that. We have to get back, to that. There was never a time, folks.
Yeah, we have an idyllic America in our minds.
There you go.
The America where everything works out great and everybody's happy and everybody's prosperous, everybody's free, everybody has a good job, has a nice house, everybody, it's mom and dad and buddy and sis and everything's just great.
All right, now.
Gosh, I wish it was like that, but
all right.
Just isn't,
Hold on.
I can sit and dream about it, but it doesn't really exist.
However, and I'm not being clever about this, but this is this all ties in, and that is, now let's look back at pre-World War II Germany getting their, balls up in a tizzy and their pecker raised and their nostrils flared. Did not Hitler and the magicians play on that same thing?
Sure.
They were hearkening a population back to a time that didn't ever exist.
Right.
I mean, speak to that if you will, because that is a very, very heavy psychological motivator.
Well, one thing that really motivated a lot of people to follow Hitler from a cultural standpoint is after the First World War and all the social and cultural chaos, many people wanted to go back to what they thought of as a previous era where everything was well organized and there was a decency and there was peace and an organized life. When you look at the Weimar Republic, and especially in the larger cities, and in particular Berlin, it was like a social cultural war zone. I mean, Berlin was basically a cesspool, morally. All kinds of sexual degeneracy was going on. There were clubs, there were nightclubs where people could go in, which were predominantly, say, sadomasochists. People would go in and, pay a certain amount of money and they would find a particular prostitute, and they would have a sadomasochistic,
But doesn't the movie Cabaret capture that?
What's that?
Doesn't the movie Cabaret capture that?
Yes, it does to an extent, yeah.
I mean, when that first came out, I don't know about you, but I mean, we're only a year or so apart. I didn't have the historical context to understand what they were showing. Mm-hmm. It didn't make sense to me.
Right.
Because, you hear that famous line when, I don't know who was the famed German actor that was in there at the time, the blonde. And he and
Michael York.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, German. He wasn't. He plays German, but right. Michael York.
Well, he played an Englishman who had gone to Germany to teach English.
Right.
He was trying to have a career as a teacher.
And he looks through the cracked door to Liza Minnelli, and she says she's screwing this guy. And then Michael York says, "So am I."
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I mean,
there was a lot of that. Gender bending and bisexual. People were way over the top. I mean, I've read things by, I believe the guy's name is Isherwood. He was an Englishman, a writer who was living in Berlin during the Weimar Republic, and he wrote about, the sexual degeneracy there. Not just sexual degeneracy, but they also had huge problem with drugs. Cocaine was very much, being used, and morphine. I don't think they had heroin at that time, but there was a lot of drug use. There was even the use of psychedelics, in particular peyote, and kind of a I wouldn't say a mirror image of what's going on in this country, but a very a rough parallel of what's going on with American society since the 60s and 70s.
All right, but now remember Peikoff, and Peikoff makes a case, and I don't think he makes it like he has to argue it. He documents it, that Germany was, and I never really looked at Germany in this sense because I would always go like to France and Britain in my mind. But at the time during the Weimar Republic, I mean, Germany was the cultural where it's at.
Right.
They had the writers, they had the philosophers.
They had the Bauhaus movement.
Yeah.
They had Dada, which was
Dadaism, yeah.
Yeah, Dadaism.
But the thing is, at that point, they were where it's at. And I don't think many people, and I certainly would never, until I had encountered the book and Peikoff's book, Ominous Parallels, and then went back, and then I realized, holy mackerel! I mean, as much as we used to make the fun of Germany as like Das Boot, you know what I mean? And that's all they're good for. And that they were the center. It wasn't Paris. It wasn't London. It was Germany. And then, do I have this right? You tell me. We see a certain kind of now heading over the mountain where things now start to get debauched. Mm-hmm. And it gets corrupt and it gets prurient. You know what I mean? And now you've got a society ready for a fall.
Exactly.
All right. Now look at us. Are we there?
Oh yeah. I think we've been there.
All right, let me run this by you because it blew me away. I'm sorry, folks, I missed this. I'm such a sheltered person. Now we have not wife swapping, but couples in like these little clusters that all, right, and they call it polyamorous. And I'm like, well, we're polyamorous. I'm like, so what are you telling me? In other words, you can do whatever you want to do. Just throw a label on it, find a reason why we do it, psychologically, and it's okay.
Well, I'll tell you the one thing that indicates to me that we have just gone down the drain as a society is this pedophilia thing that's going on. Yes, it's underground to some extent, but I mean, when a major university has a scandal breaking out about pedophilia, and a former defensive coordinator coach, is being brought up on charges of molesting kids, and that's really over the top to me. I mean, I don't see how a society which has that going on behind the scenes can continue to thrive and can continue to progress. I really don't think so.
No, and remember, a word also about this, as an aside, thank you for bringing that up. But I had the interview with Lynn Crook, who talked about pedophilia. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have some other people come on about that too, because it's America's not little but big dirty secret now.
It is, to me, it is the most debased,
yep,
disgusting, horrific thing that's ever happened as far as a trend within our society. And I don't know how deep this filth goes, but apparently there are things going on behind the scenes among certain elite pedophile groups, and apparently they work together in networking to obtain these children to abuse. That is so vile, so evil, that if you don't believe in the devil by now, I don't know what it would take for you to believe in it when you see something like that.
Well, I asked Lynn Crook in that interview that we did what she thought would happen with the Penn State situation. She said it'll get brushed under the rug. And
she's probably right.
She's probably right. In fact, something just popped up the other day, and that's mainly because now Penn State has got a new football coach, O'Brien, from the Patriots.
Yeah, we want to talk about that a lot, but we don't want to talk about that scandal.
No, and that thing is being, and of course there are some voices which I don't think are sensationalistic. I think that they're trying to hang on to this to say, folks, there's something bigger here, and that is we might have a Franklin cover-up going on with the second mile.
I'd be willing to bet you that there are wealthy, powerful people that were involved in this ring. I believe there is a ring that Sandusky was involved with, and I also believe that there could well be politicians, behind that, and people in positions of power to cover these things up. I mean, it couldn't have gone on all those years the way it did. Something is wrong there. When this gross, immoral, evil, perverse behavior has been covered up for how many years? And nobody knows what's going down? And this one guy, I love this one coach, this McCrary or whatever his name was, this idiot going, I went and called my dad about it and asked him what to do. Hey, man, why didn't you call the cops and tell them what was going on? That made no sense. Well, I went to the coach. Man, what are you,
I know.
8 years old? Yeah, I went to the coach when I was a little kid, but come on.
I said to Lynn during the interview, and you would do the same as I would. I said to her is, I spent time in collegiate athletics, and I can tell you that I never saw it, and I can tell you that if it happened, there'd be such a bad ass-kicking, first of all.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Some people be kicking some serious butt.
Right. And then we would call the cops afterwards and say he slipped in the shower, get his ass out of here. I'm sorry, not that I'm such a bad dude, but that's the way things were back then.
Yeah.
And that's when I said to her, I got to tell you, Lynn, I'm not naive. I've been at Division I programs. I was in this situation for 20 years, and man, that would not, I'm sorry, that is just nope, wouldn't happen. But, however, now that individual who was, the quarterback's coach or something like that.
Yeah.
He also, now he's backtracking from his statements. The whole thing is a dumpster fire. The whole thing is a dumpster fire.
It's obvious they didn't want to get that dirt, that filth, on the program. In other words, they didn't want to, splatter it all over the program. So they do what they think they should, which is to cover it up.
What I did say to Lynn,
which shows a moral
bankruptcy.
Degeneracy within that group. I'm sorry, but I don't have anything against anybody at Penn State or any of the players, but I'll never be able to look at that school, again as a place that I would want a kid to. I would not want to send my son to play ball there. Well, I wouldn't want anything to do with that kind of program or with that kind of administration.
Well, that's true too. But I'll say this.
That's just me.
That stuff though went on with the camps and such that coaches are allowed to run. As I do, football coaches and coaches at schools to sweeten their salary, which at times is not all that great.
Yeah.
They're allowed to run camps.
Wrong with the camps, I understand.
Yeah, it was with the camps.
Allow the coach to have a larger income because a lot of times coaches don't make very much money.
Right.
Especially in high schools.
And so my point was it was not necessarily involved with the football program. It was that Sandusky was blessed by the football program and allowed to run camps, which 99% of the time would work out great, as they do this very day.
Right.
But then when it was seen that this was the situation, and I'll say this, I can look at Penn State. I would send my kid to Penn State, but I would never look at Paterno the same way again, which I never really trusted anyway, by the way.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. It's like, you dude, had to go.
I always thought Paterno was being set up on a pedestal.
Yes, he was.
And was I always thought that was a bunch of jive. I mean, we have, I've seen that with a lot of coaches are put up on pedestals. I won't get into that, but
no, and I'll say this, which is very salacious and unfair for me to do, but I'm going to say it. When I was coaching at Columbia, as in Ivy League, we had some conversations about that was supposed to be, and this is like 85 or so, or 86. I got that right? 86, yeah, around there. The creation of the Colonial League, where all teams that went in there would be free of like all the chicanery. And I'm not going to mention names. I'm just not going to do it. But one of the coaches I was involved with said, as soon as you start something, the program gets corrupt right from there on. And I said, well, what about Joe? And he looked at me like, And I'm like, all right, don't tell him I'm okay.
Yeah, that's one of those moments where you realize that your illusions are being shattered.
Yes, it's like, Hanson, you are from Jersey, aren't you? Yeah. We let you come over the river and just leave it at that.
Yeah, I can kind of see that.
I got to tell you though, and I'm telling war stories, but damn it, I'm allowed to.
It's your show.
It's my show. It's my delusion, and you're welcome to it. But I will tell you something. Fall baseball on the Columbia baseball field, knowing that Gehrig had been there, people like that, with the leaves changing and the field situated between the Hudson and the East Rivers, I got to tell you though, Larry, it was sweet.
Yeah.
It was sweet. And then walking past the football field, knowing that Kerouac had been on that field, and I don't know, it was great. And the kids were tremendous. It's just that I couldn't talk about throwing fast. I had to say velocity. I couldn't call it a baseball. It had to be a horsehide spheroid. No, but,
I've always heard Columbia had a real high academic standard. I didn't know that high.
And figure them letting me there. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Actually,
I just see you as just the perfect baseball coach at an Ivy League institution.
Actually, those kids would agree with you. They would not let me into their graduate school of journalism, so I fixed them and I became a baseball coach. That'll teach you.
Oh man,
that was great stuff those days. Anyway, so here we are back looking at our society, and we're looking at that of Germany. Mm-hmm. And then there's a third factor in here, and that is we see a repetition here and that's what Peikoff was trying to drive home. Right. And it is ominous, and it is a parallel.
Well, when you see the influence of spiritual evil, you inevitably, at some point, will see the influence of sexual perversion. It just seems to, all through the Bible, we see elements of sexual perversion being associated with Satan and with the powers of darkness. Which leads me to something that I wanted to talk about today. I said I would talk about the hierarchy of evil, and I have some material here I'd like to talk about.
Go ahead.
Since the fall, there's been a spiritual hierarchy, according to the Bible. There's been a spiritual hierarchy of demons, angelic princes, if you like, who rule the underworld and the world. And this is brought out by the Apostle Paul in Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And also another passage in the Bible which talks about the hierarchy of the demonic, of the evil, is Revelations 9 and 11. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. Now, those are things that I know and I believe because the Bible is telling me about them. I've also done some research on some things that I believe to be true, and I'll read some passages which back up, or some passages which led me to a certain belief in the hierarchy of a satanic spiritual hierarchy. This is from a history of Indian literature by Professor Maurice Winternitz. Throughout the Buddhist canon, we come across passages which presuppose the existence of that very ancient religious tradition known as the Vedas. Vedic literature led us well nigh into prehistoric times, and for the beginning of epic poetry, too, we had to dispense with all certain dates. Orthodox Hindus hold that the Vedas existed even before the creation of the world, co-eternal with Brahman. The three spheres of the vertical universe of the original Vedic sages was believed to be the abode of 33 gods, the 8 Vaisas, the 11 Rudras, the 12 Adityas, Dyaus, Zeus, and Prithvi of the earth. What he's saying there is that he's not talking about a satanic spiritual hierarchy, but he's talking about the Hindu Vedas, and there are apparently 33 gods with a little g, which I would equate with demons. Then we go on to another publication about Hindu beliefs. The Quarterly Journal of Vishva Hindu Parishad of America, Incorporated, which is January-March of 2001, states, the perceptible world is a manifestation of the Supreme Spirit, thus becomes a collection of 33 symbolic divinities called the 33 gods. And then later on it states, in the Vishnu Purana, Book 1, it states, these 33 divinities exist age after age, and their appearance and disappearance is in the same number as the sun sets and rises again. I believe this demonic hierarchy is the same as the Great White Brotherhood, which Blavatsky talks about. There are quite a few writers of occult literature who talk about the Great White Brotherhood, which I believe is this spiritual hierarchy. This is from The Mission of Mysticism by Richard Kirby. The demonic hierarchy is called the Great White Brotherhood. The externalization of this hierarchy will be in the form of two councils, the Council of 9 and the Council of 24. These two councils are dealt with in many occult books. This is from a book called Stargate Conspiracy by Len Pinkett and Clive Prince. Dr. Paschal Beverly Randolph, Reuben Swinburne, who is Clymer's mentor, believed that throughout history a series of initiatory orders has existed which is controlled by higher spiritual beings known as the Great White Brotherhood. And Clymer claimed that the Grand Master of this order was the Rosicrucian order, Fraternitas Rosae Crucis, was directly accountable to them. More important is the fact that Randolph used the name hierarchy to describe these higher spiritual beings, the same term used by Bailey, Hertog, Puharich, and Whitmore. And besides believing that a Council of 9 directs certain esoteric schools from France, Randolph of a Council of 24, which also appears in Hertog's The Keys of Enoch. Interestingly, Randolph believed that spiritual beings from other planets often visit the Earth. Well, I believe there are beings, spiritual beings that visit the Earth, but I don't think they're from other planets. And I think you get my drift there.
Oh, yeah. No, I got no problem with that.
And I believe that it's mirrored, this hierarchy of 33 is mirrored in the European Union, the European Council of Princes, which was created in 1946. It just happens to be made up of 33 royal princes. And the current head of the European Council of Princes is Prince Michael James Alexander Stuart. And the Stuarts are very famous family, very much involved with the occult literature and occult beliefs of the Merovingians. And I was going to go on and talk a little more about the Merovingians, actually talk quite a bit more. This is from I have a series of articles and also going to try to get to a thing by Peter Lamenda about the Grail bloodlines. This is from a book by David Livingstone, or an article by David Livingstone, called Rothschilds and the Grail Bloodline. I won't go a great deal into the Rothschild thing, but this is a very interesting article. Jacob Rothschild, the current head of the Rothschild dynasty, has intermarried with the Sinclair family. forging an important alliance between the head family of, and I don't like this term, but the Illuminati and the supposed descendants of the Grail family. As has been popularized recently by Dan Brown in the Da Vinci Code, or before him by the Holy Blood, Holy Grail, the Stuarts of Scotland are supposedly descended from King Arthur and Jesus Christ. These families, of course, are not descended from Jesus. The idea is preposterous, but they are related to the Holy Grail, and they are not Christians, but Kabbalists. In reality, they, like all the aristocratic bloodlines that form the core of the Illuminati, are descended from Guillaume de Galon of the 8th century A.D. Guillaume's father was Rabbi Makir, among the exilarchs who ruled the Jews in Baghdad, who was sent west after a dispute over the successorship. In France, he took the name Theodoric, married Alda, the aunt of Charlemagne, and was appointed king of the Jews in the region of the Languedoc, which is his capital, the city of Narbonne. Narbonne then became the heartland of the medieval Kabbalah. The Kabbalists of Narbonne seem to have been responsible for instigating the Crusades in order to retrieve the sacred text that had been buried there, but which had been inaccessible because of first of the rule of the Romans and then the Muslims. Once Jerusalem was conquered, a Kabbalistic order of knights known as the Templars conducted excavations and discovered the text of the Sefer HaBahir, which revived the lost mystical tradition and set off the cultural revolution of the medieval Kabbalah. Another aspect of the penetration of these Kabbalistic ideas was the heresy of the Cathars. The Cathar foothold was in the region of Toulouse, the bastion of the descendants of Guillaume, also known as the family of the Gildamids, several of whom were ardent defenders of this heresy. However, the Cathars have been idealized by numerous propagandists as having been innocent victims of church persecutions. But the Cathars rejected the God of the Bible in favor of the worship of Lucifer and practiced witchcraft. It was the Cathars who influenced the heretical aspects of the Templars, for which the order was disbanded in 1307. Part of this Kabbalistic revolution was the legends of the Holy Grail, which include Cathar and Templar themes, and formulated in the region of Aquitaine, another stronghold of the Gilamids. The Holy Grail, or Sangreal, should have been translated as Sangreal, or royal blood, because it referred to the sacred bloodline that supposedly issued from Guillaume de Galon and ultimately King David, but which in reality was understood to represent the descendants of the fallen angels and their leader, Lucifer. This was kind of it was a revelation to me. It was interesting, and I started looking into it. And there's more than one author, one researcher, who is saying that the actual Grail bloodline dates back to the idea of the Nephilim and the fallen angels having sex with the daughters of men. That's from a passage in Genesis 6, 1 and 4. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God, you'll notice sons of God, which we could say is the fallen angels. I'm not really sure about that. That the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also that when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, they became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. The Merovingian dynasty, the Grail bloodline people, claim that their ancestry dates back to Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene. I'm going to talk about how that mythology was put together, and we'll talk about the cult of the Black Virgin. And from an article by Barbara Aho, The Satanic Bloodline, the Antichrist and False Prophet, she says, during the 1st century A.D., Alexandria, Egypt, was a veritable hotbed of mystical activity, a crucible in which, according to Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and I quote, Judaic, Mithraic, Zoroastrian, Pythagorean, Hermetic and Neoplatonic doctrines suffused the air and combined with innumerable others. It was in the early centuries of the Christian era that the ancient worship of the Mother Goddess was introduced to Christianity by Jews who had fled Israel and embraced Alexandrian Neoplatonism, which is just a rehash of the Greek paganism. And going to quote from Holy Blood, the Neoplatonists are Greek philosophers who lived long enough after Plato to have lost the name of Platonist as far as modern scholars are concerned, although they are, in effect, disciples of Plato and consider themselves Platonists. It was in the Gnostic culture of Alexandria that the Mother Goddess evolved into Mary Magdalene. Ian Begg wrote in The Cult of the Black Virgin that, quote, many of the finest Gnostic writings are of Alexandrian inspiration or origin. Alexandria is also the main source of Gnostic works linking Jesus with Mary Magdalene. According to this tradition, it was through the Magdalene, rather than through Peter and the male apostles, that Jesus transmitted his secret doctrine. Well, we all know that Jesus had no secret doctrine, or at least we as Christians do not believe that Jesus had a secret doctrine, and he himself said, I'll just paraphrase, that everything I've said was in public, and in secret I have said nothing. So that right there is heretical. Also from a book called The Mary Magdalene Files by the same author, there is no necessity to endeavor to crowbar Mary Magdalene into a Galilean setting, for there are no other intriguing alternatives for her place of origin. Although there was no Magdala in Judea in her day, there was a Magdalene in Egypt just across the border, which was probably the Migdal mentioned in Ezekiel. There was a large and flourishing Jewish community in Egypt at that time, which was particularly centered on the great seaport of Alexandria, a seething cosmopolitan melting pot of many races, nationalities, and religions, and perhaps where the Holy Family had fled to escape the depredation of Herod's men. The reason I brought that up is to talk about the cult of Isis, which is involved with the bloodlines, the Grail bloodlines. And briefly, I'll use another occultic author, Manly P. Hall, who's a famous Masonic author. Among the Egyptians, Isis is often represented with a headdress consisting of the empty throne chair of her murdered husband, and this particular structure, peculiar structure, was accepted during certain dynasties as her hieroglyphic. That's from Manly P. Hall, Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Rosicrucian symbolical philosophy. Isis was the embodiment of authority, and divine right to rule was by her authority. Papal and kingly thrones all hark back to the lap of Isis. Well, you can see right there that this is leading into the idea of the authority of the kings and divine right of kings. Goes on to say, divine right of kings would explain the longevity of the cult of Isis and her esteem among royalty who believed themselves to be descendants of a divinity. Lewis Spence wrote in Ancient Egyptian Myths and Legends that the cult of Isis has survived from the dynastic period of Egypt through the classical period and the Holy Roman Empire, and has today principally carried on in Paris, the location of the Priory to Sion. Isis, or Ast, must be regarded as one of the earliest and most important conceptions of female godhood in ancient Egypt. In the dynastic period, she was regarded as the feminine counterpart of Osiris, and we may take it that before the dawn of Egyptian history, she occupied a similar position. No other deity has probably been worshipped for such an extent of time, for her cult did not perish with that of most other Egyptian gods, but flourished later in Greece and Rome and is seriously carried on in Paris today. Peter Dawkins wrote in The Great Vision that in the Kabbalistic mysticism, the throne Isis also represents the temple in which the union of the virgin soul to the spirit, Lucifer, takes place. The union, which is achieved only by the highest adepts and masters, produces the Christ child, who is the living embodiment of light, which Dawkins states is the meaning of Horus. In other words, Horus is the incarnation of the spirit, Lucifer. The enthroned lady or heavenly queen is the ancient title of Isis, the virgin mother of Horus, as also of Mary, the virgin mother of Jesus. The hieroglyphic symbol of Isis used by the ancient Egyptians was that of a throne, Isis being the actual throne or seat upon which the child Horus sits as king of light, the sun king. The same symbol is employed in Christian iconography, and Mary is portrayed as the throne or seat with the Christ child seated in her lap, with his head aligned with her heart. It is carefully constructed and important symbol revealing many mysteries. Yeah. In the Hebraic Kabbalah, the throne is described as the Merkabah, or throne of glory, the perfect dwelling place of the Lord. It is the supreme and pure tabernacle, or temple, in which the messianic presence of the Lord God may dwell and be manifest. That is to say, it is the perfect form of divine manifestation, the virgin soul, bride to the Spirit, the sublime union of the receptive, responsive bride with the active, creative Spirit produces the Messiah, or Christ child, the living embodiment of light, which is what the word Jesus or Horus means. In biblical terms, it means that the living soul, Adam, becomes a life-giving spirit, Christ, the former being a receptacle of life, the latter being a creator of life. The same symbolic sense that a moon may become a star, or a light-receiving vessel may transform itself into a light-producing star, one of the cosmic form of nature, are born the shining sons of light. I never heard so much crap in my life, but anyway, that's Manly P. Hall.
Interesting, too, because if you think about it, you look at the manifestations of females in our government, the goddess of liberty, which adorns, at least it did in the old days, silver dollars. On top of the dome of the Capitol is the goddess of liberty, although they renamed it to get away from that. That's exactly what it is.
Exactly.
And what's interesting is also...
It's very occult.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, look at D.C. That is definitely occult central.
You know, a lot of people have pointed that out, and many of them have been made mercilessly fun of. They've been ridiculed for it. But it simply is a fact that there's a tremendous amount of occultic symbolism put there by Masonic, people that it was intentional.
Now, you already spoke about Isis and Osiris. You have Isis, the female, embodied in the Capitol dome, which is basically a tit, upon which sits the goddess of liberty, which they placed there in somewhere in the 1864 or 8, I forget.
It most closely, just to the naked eye, it most closely resembles a breast with a nipple.
Yeah,
I mean that's what
the dome is.
Yeah,
and
what it is,
and it sits in view of its male counterpart, which is the
phallic
obelisk.
Yeah. Right.
So
exactly.
And I don't, I don't mean to beat this to death. I don't know if we've ever spoken about this before, but I mean I got a little bit of a problem with the United States taking their 13 colonies,
13, yeah,
making them states, and the 14th territory they choose not to make a state, but the District of Columbia.
Exactly.
Now, Columbia is part of this whole female goddess thing that whether it's Semiramis or however you want to say her name, whether it's Isis, whether it's the Queen of Heaven, which it all goes back to, because the Queen of Heaven is the satanic counterfeit of the Lord, right? And when you take a look at D.C., you have the 14th territory. In the story of Osiris's death and mutilation, 13 parts are found. Isis can't find the 14th, which is basically his dick. And so she creates a prosthetic, which is now we know as the obelisk. And what sits in D.C. looking across at the female genitalia, but the Washington Monument, which is 555 feet, go look it up, and times 12, that is 6,660 inches. 6,660 inches.
And none of these things could be, none of these things could be coincidental. They couldn't be there by accident.
And the thing is, I'm not even blaming it on the Masons. I'm blaming it on Satan.
No, I don't either.
And going back to Babylonian symbology. Now, the other thing I blame
it on their father, the devil.
Of course, that's what it's all about.
Really,
and they can't, and this whole thing, this whole DC was built. And let's not shortchange this either. what do we look at some of our buildings that we just, fawn over, and they're in the pagan classical style of design, both Roman and Greek. What is with that?
Roman and Greek architecture, Roman and Greek symbols are just all over everything. Why?
And then you take
Rome was, Rome had been a republic, but Rome was much better known as being an empire that went around exploiting and the whole world of the ancient times.
So here is our capital, our beloved place, the seat of whatever you want to call it, and it is absolutely rife and infested with nothing but occult symbology. And
exactly.
For all the stuff that's on the dollar bill, which everybody understands now, there's something I find reprehensible.
Yeah, of course, right there, right in your face, literally.
All right, but tell me this now. This could have been so easily not done. This is what pisses me off.
Yeah.
You take a look at the face of the dollar, you go up into the upper right-hand corner, in that scallop there, and what is in there along with the number 1 except an owl?
Yeah.
All right, now, guys, tell me about this. Tell me why it was so necessary to throw a minute owl up in that right-hand corner of a dollar.
I think the whole thing is they enjoy putting it in your face and laughing at you because you can't see what they're trying to do.
I know,
it's a strange, perverse thing that they do where they put these symbols in front of the people that they consider to be the unwashed masses, the uninitiated, shall we say. They enjoy putting those symbols up in your face and laughing that you can't see what they're trying to tell you.
And yet when people do, and then you get all the debunkers that come out because they have access to mainstream media. Yeah. Oh, well, of course, this means this and that. No, screw you. It's a lie.
Yeah.
There's no reason in the world you had to do that, and you did it. And of course, the one thing that's even beyond funny is, standing out in New York Bay is the statue of Isis with her flame and torch, the illuminating torch, and that was from our French Freemason brothers.
Right.
You can take that thing and stick it somewhere too.
Yeah, and it's the same. It's the same symbol. The woman is the same thing. I mean, it's Semiramis in the times of Babylonian paganism. Nimrod, Semiramis, or Semiramis, and Tammuz, and then you go on to Isis and Osiris, and then they put it into Christianity. They take this paganism, put it into Christianity, and bring Mary in as the Queen of Heaven. Well, the Queen of Heaven was exactly the same thing, as in the Bible.
That's right. It's a counterfeit.
Yeah.
It goes back to Nimrod and his mother, who supposedly had the virgin birth,
right,
begatting Nimrod. And that's why we have Easter, because why?
Let me read something from an occultist, Tracy Twyman, in the Apocalypse plot, a Merovingian Antichrist, in question mark. Cain founded a number of cities himself, and we've argued that he is essentially synonymous with Nimrod, who built the Tower of Babel. Although the race of Cain is properly thought to be cursed by God, the Bible says that God placed a mark upon Cain and all his descendants, cursing those who would do them harm, even after the murder of his brother, Abel. In fact, the Cainites were remembered by every other culture as magnificent kings, teachers of wisdom, and builders of nations. Even the word king comes from Cain. He was worshipped by his people as a god, depicted in the form of a sea bull or a dragon. This was the Babylonian religion that the Hebrews found so idolatrous and offensive. It even included the sacrifice of babies in a fiery pit, and yet many of the Hebrews, including their kings, practiced this religion and intermarried with Canaanite women. Thus, it is conceivable, if not certain, that the bloodline of Cain interbred with the Davidic bloodline that eventually resulted in Jesus. The Merovingian Franks alluded to their Cainite descent with their legend that their founder, Merovius, was the spawn of a sea bull called a Kenotor, a word not to be found in the dictionary, but which is etymologically linked with the name of Cain. Perhaps it is this intermingling of holy and infernal bloodlines that the Merovingian descendants known as the Angevins were referring to with their use of the double-barred cross of Lorraine, said to represent both the blood of Christ and of Satan, the same artery in the same vein. It's just despicable, but hey. Interestingly, the worship, even here, an occultist is admitting that paganism was forced into Christianity in the Mariolatry. Interestingly, the worship of Jesus as God incarnate has led to the formation of a religion that in all outward forms is a resurrection of the old Babylonian religion of Cain. Well, I would strongly
disagree with
object to that.
Yep, sure.
Yes, Roman Catholicism is. Many of the ceremonies of Christianity, it doesn't say Roman Catholic, but Christianity, including Mass, communion, baptism, and confession, confession is not Christian at all, it's Babylonian, but anyway, are taken directly from the Babylonian priesthood, as well as many of the symbols and idols used by Catholicism. She finally says that. The construction of the cathedrals represents the ancient pagan temples of Babylon, and even the structure of the priesthood is the same, along with the requirements of celibacy and wearing black. But most importantly, the deities are at heart the same. All the saints are said to possess powers that correspond with those of various pagan deities and are worshipped as such by many people, especially throughout the Third World. The familiar statues of Mother Mary holding the baby Jesus mimic precisely those of Babylon's Ishtar holding her baby. She, like the Virgin Mary, was called the Queen of Heaven and the Mother of God. The traditional Catholic depiction of Mary ascending to heaven matches that of the Babylonian goddess in every detail. This depiction is also precisely described in the 12th chapter of Revelation. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. This woman gives birth to a man-child who is to rule all nations with a rod of iron. This person is either the Antichrist or his ancestor Cain. Both would match this description. The seven-headed dragon, as we know, is Europe. But one of the scarlet horror referred to in Revelation is riding on the back of the great beast, the one called Mystery Babylon the Great, mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. There can be little doubt that Rome is the scarlet whore. You got that one right, honey. This is made clear when it is specifically stated the seven heads of the beast are the seven mountains on which the woman sitteth. Rome was built upon 7 hills. The 10 crowns represent the 10 kings who will be in charge of the European Union, presumably descendants of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. I don't think so. The scarlet woman is also said in Revelation to be a possession of a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. It would be no stretch to equate this cup with the Holy Grail, a traditional symbol of the bloodline of Christ, and of the womb that bore his descendants, the womb of Mary Magdalene, whose name, Magdal, is the Babylonian tongue means tower, as in Tower of Babel. She, too, is traditionally thought of as a whore and is worshipped in southern France as the incarnation of Ishtar in the form of the Black Madonna. She also is depicted in Catholic iconography as holding a vase filled with healing balm, as it says in the poem Le Serpent Rouge, which she used to anoint Christ as the King of Judah just prior to his crucifixion. And we know that the filthiness of fornication with Jesus, that is ridiculous. And we know that the filthiness of fornication with Jesus is what beget the Merovingian bloodline that shall once more rule the European empire in the coming age. Now that, it makes me sick to even say something like that, to quote this woman, but these people are aware of the prophecies, but they twist them.
Sure. And by the way, she was
amazing how they. I mean, they're better read and more well versed on the Bible and prophetic passages in the Bible than most Christians are. That's scary.
I want you to know before you bang me anymore. She was a guest on this show. Colvin brought her on.
I know. I remember him bringing her on.
I mean, she's got a lot right.
That's his business, you know.
Well, that ain't going to happen anymore.
Yeah, I hear you. I was kind of grossed out by it, but it was okay.
Actually, she, like you said, she does have a lot of the, well, you want to call it, maybe it's not mythology, that's probably a wrong word for it, but she has a lot of the symbology right, except that at the end, you have, of course, look.
I think she's a very intelligent woman.
I know.
She writes well, she's well read, she understands mythology, and she understands the Bible. Unfortunately, she's an occultist, and she believes in this Merovingian bloodline thing. And she believes that Jesus and Mary Magdalene had a sexual relationship which produced this Grail bloodline, and I don't.
When you deal with occultists, when you deal, as I have, with the Sarian and Red Ice and Chris Knowles and the late Kent Benkowski and all this other stuff, you find out in the end that really they got a case of the ass against Jesus Christ, which is where it all goes down, right?
They certainly do.
Okay, and we understand that, and that's one of the reasons.
What a terrible way to smear the image of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ than to say he committed fornication with Mary Magdalene and smearing Mary Magdalene as well. It's just, that's awful. It's a terrible. Not only that, but if he indeed did not die on the cross, then there is no hope for us, because there is no remission for sin. Because if he did not die on the cross, if he did not descend into Hades, and if he did not rise in the resurrection on the third day and ascend back into heaven after talking to his disciples and explaining what their mission would be, if none of those things happen, then Christianity is a lie, a false religion, and we have no hope for salvation. There's no way that we can repent and have our sins forgiven by our Lord.
One of the things.
This what a terrible, blasphemous. What I don't know. I get fired up.
You get fired up, but the point is that, and I learned this early on when I accepted Jesus Christ as Savior, and that is, take a look at anything that portends, pretends, makes believe that it is a, quote, Christian religion, and you can find out right away where it's at, because the acid test is, how do they treat Christ? And there you go. If you can deny Christ, his sacrificial component, it's all over with. It's done. Right. It's all bogus.
And they always do that. They always try to deny the divinity of Christ.
But that is what the Lord gave us as a litmus test. You don't have to be a brainiac. You don't have to have an IQ above water to understand that that's what he told you. Who denies that Jesus is the Christ? Once you get that straight, and of course that's all. And there's
a passage in the Bible, I'll paraphrase it, it says, who is a liar? Save him.
But those who say, right.
Yeah. Save him who says that Jesus was not the Christ.
And you're seeing this among supposed Christians as well. So this is the way it's going to go down. It's happening right according to... It's funny because those who would say that this is all scripted and it's bogus are actually fulfilling the prophecies themselves, which I think is an absolute riot.
Right.
But when you get right down to cases, whenever you tune in sometimes or flip through channels and someone's going on about God, I'm hanging there for one reason. Are you going to talk Jesus Christ? Oh, no?
Right.
Then you take whatever you're got, get it out of here. The Wayne Dyers and all these other characters who come on with, the God essence. No, I don't want to talk about God essence. I want to talk about God. Tell me about, do we have Jesus Christ here? No, I'm out of here.
One thing I've noticed about, I'm having a senior moment here, but the Lakewood Church in Houston, the guy who is the pastor there and his father used to pastor that church.
We're not talking about Osteen, are we?
Osteen, exactly.
Yeah.
I had the misfortune of once going to a service in that church. Woo! And I went at the request of a family member, but at any rate, I won't get into that. But I was about maybe 50, 75 feet away from the man, and I listened to him preach. And it was all about improving your life, and doing this and that and the other, and prosperity will come your way. But do you know that during the entire speech, he did not speak about Jesus Christ?
No, not once. Nope.
I mean, this is a church,
The church of feel-good right now, baby.
The church of the Cadillac and Discount House of Religion.
You got to believe in someone.
God does not want you to be poor.
If you got to believe in someone, you got to believe in me. You ain't going to pay for that Eldorado with no 5s and 10s.
Put your hand on the radio.
Put your hand on the dashboard. Yes.
Send in your $50 in cash, and we will send you a prayer cloth.
Or
this message is brought to you from our station in Del Rio, Texas.
Yeah, the Discount House of Worship. Yes. Put in $20. 50 will be there when you get there.
Man.
I like the other one, LL, the Wings of Moses. But we laugh, but it does work. It works a lot.
Well, you have to laugh to keep from crying, because there's an awful lot of good people, decent people out there who want to follow God, who want to follow Jesus Christ and believe in Jesus. They believe in him, but they go and they get involved with these churches of that nature and these phony preachers who lead them down a primrose path, and it's just sad. It really is. And they're not preaching the gospel, and they're not helping those people progress as Christians.
No.
And it's just really sad. They're in it for Machiavelli once made the statement that organized religion, is a means of social control and a way to make money. That's exactly what those kind of churches are.
They are. I mean, he's absolutely right.
Yeah. I mean, Machiavelli understood psychology of it all, and understood how important religion was, and that's why he was studied by the fascists, especially Mussolini, since he was an Italian as well, and well known in Italian culture. His writings are well known as a political philosopher, and Mussolini studied him. And one thing that he said in his writings over and over was, "You must appear to be religious. You must have, and in his time, he taught the princes, in his book, The Prince, that they must have affiliation with the church and must appear to be religious. Of course, behind the scenes, the guy could care less, And I think that's the same thing with our politicians now. They all, want to wrap themselves in the flag and then bump on a Bible, and talk about their faith. They talk about their faith a lot. They don't talk about Jesus. I believe in Jesus Christ. It's my faith is important to me. Well, there are people who have faith in rocks,
Well, they're real. By the way, did you see that article that I think I might have sent around or Chuck sent around where Newt Gingrich converted to Catholicism?
Yeah, I did. You asked me about that last time. Yeah,
I did. Oh, see, now that's nice that I have a senior moment when you don't. And that's Andy Colvin, God bless him. Andy's like, he's so very tolerant of me. And he's so good about it. He goes, Viz, we talked about that in 2006.
Yeah.
All right. Moving right along. Damn.
There's one thing I wanted to talk about was from going back to the connection with the Nazis and the occult, and that is in Peter Levenda's Unholy Alliance. We're talking about the Cathars.
Yes.
And it's directly related to what we were just talking about. The chapter is named Lucifer's Quest for the Holy Grail. And it's about a particular SS officer, Otto Rahn, who did have a quest for the Holy Grail. And it, Levenda says, probably one of the most outlandish yet somehow oddly grand, strangely cosmic endeavors of the Third Reich in general, and the SS in particular, was Himmler's search for the Holy Grail. This was an actual program of the SS, a program which has been immortalized in the first and third films of Steven Spielberg's Indiana Jones trilogy. It was, after all, Otto Rahn, R-A-H-N, who helped popularize the notion that the Grail was not the special property of the Catholic Church, should it actually exist and should it ever be found. For Rahn, the Grail was an emblem set up in opposition to the established church. Indeed, was a Luciferian symbol, and for this the Nazis were grateful. For if Rahn's conclusion was correct, it gave them a philosophical and historical edge over organized Christianity. The Cathars were a type of fundamentalist Christian sect, and I really don't think they were Christian, but they were a sect, that enjoyed enormous popularity in 13th century Europe, even among the nobility. Their beliefs included the doctrine that Christ was pure spirit and had never inhabited a human, that is, a material form, that the dead will not be resurrected in the body since the body was made of matter, which the Cathars viewed as satanic, that there were two forces in the universe, one of good and one of evil, that procreation was evil as it increased the amount of matter in the world and trapped souls within material forms. Naturally, they were branded as heretics by the church, and eventually Catholic armies were sent to destroy them under order of Pope Innocent III in 1209. What a name.
I know, isn't it ironic?
It really was. It was from a Catholic commander, a Cistercian abbot no less, surrounding a French town composed of both Cathar and Catholic civilians, men, women, and children, that we received the immortal line, killed them all, God will recognize his own.
Does that sound something like we heard from Vietnam?
Yeah. Kill them all, let God sort them out. Yeah. That's where that came from, a Cistercian abbot.
But I want to bring something up, too, because this is one of the things that I incensed me about the Collins brothers when they were talking about the innocence, of the Vatican at that time, and of the slaughter of the Cathars / Albigensians, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And they popped and they off and said, well, they weren't Christian anyway. And it's like, all right, so tell me
that makes it okay to kill them.
All right, fine, thank you. And I'm like, okay, so that, go ahead, wipe them out.
Blow their heads off. Hey, they're not Christians anyhow.
Yeah, because it goes on beyond that, with the Waldenses.
Yeah. The only good Indian's a dead Indian.
Yeah. And let's remember too, Huguenots.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I remember. The guy that does the Canadian ministry with orphans. Oh, he's such a big proponent of that. And I'm sorry now. Yeah, I'm doing a senior thing, but we talked about. I mean, the Catholic Church had a lot to do with the abuse of the Duplessis orphans in Quebec. And
I remember that guy on your show. He was a very interesting character.
Yeah, and I mean, I get emails all the time, not necessarily from him.
Was he a minister in a church?
No, he just was, calling it out. I mean, he was more of a children's advocate.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I talked,
decent guy. I liked it. He was well spoken to.
And when he was on, I mean, he was off air, and I just said, I'm not cool with what the Vatican did. He goes, well, neither am I. He goes, they wiped out nearly all my antecedents. He said they were Huguenots who were nearly wiped out by the Vatican. And there you go. And I mean, I'm sure that's got part of the reason why he's involved in all this kind of stuff. But it's like, this is not cool, man. This is not what Christ calls anyone to do. All this stuff, the Inquisition, by the way, this was not what he wanted. And everybody goes out and of course, we've got that version going on here. Right. These other crypto Christians like Hagee and the rest of them is like, let's go kill Arabs because they're going to go after God's city. Oh, Lord Almighty. And they may do that, but Jesus will take care of it. He has never said for any Christian to pick up a sword, gun, or otherwise and shed blood. Yeah,
what kind of gun did Jesus have? An AK-47? It's never really clear to me. He probably kept it in his Cadillac or his Mercedes.
There you go. So, I mean, but we're looking at distortions left and right. And as you had mentioned before, look, what you're going to get in mainstream media, you're going to take the biggest idiot they can find.
Right.
And they're going to promote that.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about this, and you're dead right. You can get somebody like an Ahmadinejad, put him up against John Hagee, and they can, rail at each other.
And then everybody sits there and says, oh, look, this is all so crazy. Take a look at what's going on here. So therefore, and of course, that's why I'm slowed to anger about any supposed group, because whatever mainstream media is giving you is the most probably loose cannon, crazy person in there, just so you can go ahead and be mad at them, and that's the whole idea.
It's no fun to put a guy on there who will quote from the Bible and talk about the gospel and about Jesus Christ and his sacrifice on the cross because of the love of God for mankind. Why would we want to get somebody up there who may quote passages from the Apostle Paul explaining the meanings of Christ's, life and his sacrifices? Somebody who would speak in a logical manner and a normal tone of voice. We'd much rather have somebody like John Hagee get up there and yell and scream and talk about how we need to go over there and whoop up on those Arabs,
Larry,
we need that. It makes for good theater.
I mean, again, this has got nothing to do with IQ or education. It's got to do with common sense or at least some kind of enlightenment. But what's going to happen is, we live in a cartoon culture, and they will demonize. We laugh at old movies where there was no, before the talkies.
Right.
And then the bad guy showed up, and to make sure everybody knew it was the bad guy, he had to have a top hat, a Dudley Nightshade, mustache, and the pianist had to go, no. And then we all got it. That's the bad guy. And what did the crowd do? Go, boo, hiss.
Well,
we
later
haven't
on,
evolved.
Of course, in the war movies of World War II, you would always have the Japanese, officer with the extremely thick glasses and the buck teeth.
Right, there you go.
And you know what? The other day, my son rented a video that was like a martial arts video. It was based on a martial arts. It's a Chinese movie. Okay, it's made in China. And it's about this martial arts teacher who took on the Japanese. It's a long story, but at any rate, the villain in this was a Japanese officer who had very thick glasses and buck teeth. And I thought, well, now, did they watch those old American movies? And I guess they did. They thought, well, that's a good way to portray them.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But now,
white man with skin like boiled pork.
Right. There you go. You hear about the guy who went in and robbed the Chinese restaurant? Pulled a gun on the cashier, goes, to take out? Never mind. All right, but let's get to one last thing.
That's so bad it's good.
It's a Henny Youngman, and you know it.
That's a Henny Youngman style joke.
Absolutely. But one last thing, too, which I like to clear up before we end this one, if it's okay with you, and maybe we can end on this, and that is, in the next week or so, I'm going to, kind of be drawing some stuff up about what I really think will be the real deal presented to us. And I do place, and understand this, I place a lot of value on some of the projections that were made at the beginning of the 20th century. I think that these people knew what the plan was. If they were invested by the dark side, that's fine. They still will tell you the truth, as often you will get from the dark side, like Brzezinski and others, who will tell you, they'll give you fair warning but not tell you that it's that. And the Grand Chessboard, I think, in 94 is a great example of that. All right, so where am I going with this? Charles has sent some very provocative stuff to us, very interesting stuff, and you have too, and others, and Liam as well. And as you well know, I'm stubborn as hell and everything, but I do test things to say, okay, is it I don't like this because I don't want to like it,
right,
or is it because it doesn't fit in the schema, which I have to stay with because I believe that is correct. That is not of my own making. It's what I found. And this goes in with the Informer and Montgomery and all this stuff. Now, here's where I'm going. In the futuristic works, and I'm just going to breeze through this, by Mackinder, by Robert U. Benson, which people are not availing themselves of, and I'm telling you, if you read that, you're going to find out what's going on. Also with H.G. Wells and others. Honestly, if we agree that Satan rules,
exactly,
right now, he does so from the Vatican, and he will protect his new Holy Roman Empire. The futuristic works never said that Europe was going to get trashed. They didn't necessarily identify Germany as some kind of wunderkind that might empower the Holy Roman Empire, though, let's face it, they've availed themselves of Germany.
Well, Germany was always the primary nation, the primary instrument of the Holy Roman Empire.
But
always was.
But isn't it interesting? It was always seen as the problem child. Ergo, World War I and World War II.
Well, I'm not sure I would say problem child. From a standpoint of it was a struggle between it and its desires and, say, France and Britain. But
let me ask you,
Germany was always associated with the Holy Roman Empire. The Second Reich was basically just the Hohenzollerns throwing in with the Habsburgs.
All right. So plainly, let me ask you. I think Germany has been used twice before.
Yes.
And they may be being used again, not necessarily militarily, but I see all this stuff that they're writing about. Well, the stuff that they've written about Germany is voluminous, it's compelling, but what I still feel now, before this is the first time this has happened because I didn't have the reaction, obviously, in two past wars.
Right.
But I'm starting to say to myself, and I've kind of said to Charles as well, I'm like, okay, I get this, but I'm seeing this as a very pejorative, bad spin to maximize, once again, the nasty old Germans.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that a lot of material that's being passed back and forth is based on the writings, and I'm not knocking the writers because I think they are sincere. I believe they're Christians, and I think they're sincere in their beliefs, but I think they're incorrect in some of their
conclusions,
premises, and some of their contentions. And you have to understand that the writings that we're talking about, in particular with Charles, and I do not wish to insult Charles in any way.
No, not at all.
I have a great deal of respect for him.
Yep.
I believe he's a good Christian. But this is the stuff that, and I've used a lot of that material on the show here, but it's British Israelism. And I am not a proponent of British Israelism. And I don't really think we have time to go into what all that entails. But it is a popular philosophical
belief
belief concept within contemporary Christianity. I do not believe that the people that espouse that view are anti-Christ or anti-Christian in any way, but I think they go a little too far, and they too have a problem in the fact that they attribute bloodlines and genealogy that I just don't believe is there. In other words, I don't believe that the Anglo-Saxons or the lost tribes, etc. There's a lot of Anglo-Saxonism in there that. And hey, I'm of Anglo-Saxon blood, I'm not knocking my own people, but I don't think that the Anglo-Saxons are the lost tribes. I don't think you can prove that genealogically. I don't think it can be proven.
Well,
that's all I'm saying. And again, I'm not trying to insult anybody. In fact, I used to believe this. I very strongly believed in that, but I don't think it can be backed up. With actual historical record.
Based on the Anglo-Saxon contribution to culinary delights, I thank God that there's Chinese and Italian food, because those people eat gruel all day long. I mean, I grew up in a Nordic household, and it's like, what are we going to have today? Oh, Keith, we're going to have fiskebola. Fish balls? Forget about it. Fish balls? No thanks.
And then you got smart and married an Italian girl.
Oh. Yeah, give me the meatballs and pasta. But here's where I'm going with this, and I really do believe this is the case. The futuristic works are written by, authors, fine. Benson was an Anglican who converted to Catholicism, whose brother was a Jesuit. Mackinder, I don't know if he had any kind of sectarian leanings. I don't think so. But because it came out of the city of London at right about the first decade of the 20th century, I do believe, as Brzezinski told us in 1994 with the Grand Chessboard, they'll tell you what's going to happen because they know the script.
Right.
Are they invested by the dark side? I would say yes, without a doubt. And so I lean and I listen to them because they're more inclined to give you the real truth because nobody's really listening. You know what I mean?
Right.
And my feeling is this, that the Holy Roman Empire, Europe, will survive. It will not get a scratch on it. It will exist and do fine through the Third World War, and then there will come a time.
And then it will step in.
Who?
And it will be a worldwide power.
Yeah, I think what will happen
I think what's going to happen is the Antichrist, is the way the Bible describes it, goes in and makes a peace treaty with the Jews. He arranges a peace treaty between the Arabs and the Jews, I believe.
I think you can say that entity, whatever it is, and I wrote this to somebody who I'm just starting a dialogue with about what's coming on, I would say that it presents itself as a peacemaker for a world that is war-weary and just desirous of something that can bring about peace. Now, however, here's the trip.
And this will be such a monumental thing.
Yes.
I mean, this Third World War is going to be so horrific that the man who comes in and creates a peace and creates a peace treaty is going to eventually be looked upon as a god because he will claim he is, and an awful lot of people will believe it. This is the Antichrist.
Well, it will come down to the point where you got to make your choice.
Right.
Like, no matter what Dylan was or wasn't, I mean, that song, You Got to Serve Somebody, rings very truthfully.
Yeah, you got to play that as the outro, man. That's a great song.
All right, now I got to go find it. Damn. I hate this. All right, I'll do that.
It's your show.
And everybody understands, Larry the Contractor guy,
Yeah.
That every time you say that, you get the hand up the back of me, which is the puppet. I should play.
I have never put my hand. I've never met you.
Well, it's kind
of. That's the last place I'd want to put my hand.
It's not that funny, Larry. It's not that funny.
You got to see it from my side.
No, I don't. But
well, you started off saying that Larry, the cable guy, was better looking, so you know.
I've seen you both, dude. We're just not into you. We're just not that into you. Yeah, what cracks.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, how can people look upon this? I mean, we get into these like the most abysmal, bottom of the earth, truth, rotten stuff, and then we crack up at the end. That's great.
I know.
I know.
It's comic relief. If you don't, man, you go nuts. I mean, I know that there are many times when I'm sitting around here and I'm reading and I'm thinking about, future world events, apocalyptic events, and,
Yeah.
I get so depressed. It's like, gosh, I got to go, listen to some music or, go take a ride or, do something, just to get my mind off of it. And if you can make a couple of jokes, it helps an awful lot.
As the parrot had said, if we couldn't laugh, we'd all go insane.
Exactly.
And as Dylan said, we got to serve somebody. And no, that is very apropos. It's true, because everybody thinks, well, if I don't make a decision, no. If you don't make a decision, the decision will be made for you. Exactly. And that's the whole point. And you've got as much time as you get.
And they're going to force people into the position where, through this economic bondage. In other words, if you don't take this mark, I don't know what that mark will be. Maybe it's a chip. Maybe it's a tattoo. Maybe it's a barcode. Heck, I don't know what it'll be. But whatever it is, if you don't take that mark, you can't buy and you can't sell. So you're going to starve to death. Not only that, you're probably going to be considered an outlaw, and people are going to be chasing you around trying to kill you. Throw you into a concentration camp.
Let's be honest about this too, because I think, and you're going to tell me if I'm right or not. I've wondered for some time, especially after seeing all in the post-World War II era, all the footage that for some reason is gone. And I'm not even going to attribute that to nobody should have to see that again. I don't know. I don't know. But I think I don't know what you saw where you were in the late 50s or early 60s, but some independent channels carried certain series, The Winds of War and all this. I mean, I'm talking about the movie. Mm-hmm. And I saw some stuff that was really, really upsetting. Yeah. And the children, like I said, who were like 4 or 5 years old trying to figure out what this rubble in Warsaw was all about. It's like, kids, I hate to tell you, but you probably didn't live a year or two after this footage. Mm-hmm. And so you plopped in whatever era you're plopped in, and that's the way it goes. And to think that you're going to be spared just because, that doesn't really quite cut it. Right. Now we're in that era right now, and I was talking to Lady Viz before when we were bicycling. I'm saying, it's not good news as far as the fate of the world, but it doesn't make it wrong because, and I've said this to people I'm sensitive to who have children. I'm like, I'm sorry, man, but that. Because you have children that are going to be raised in this thing, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Just like I'm sure whoever were having children in Poland and other places in 1925 never thought their 10-year-old would get their brains beat out on a tree.
Well, there are a lot of people in London, in the suburbs of London, who had kids and never thought that somebody would bomb the city. Yeah. There are a lot of guys that are driving a taxi in the streets of London who never thought a bomb would, come into, blow up a building in the middle of the street and drop rubble on their taxi. I'm just drawing that out.
No,
the same in what was it, Rotterdam? I think in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, they even surrendered to the Nazis, and the bastards went ahead and bombed the city anyway. I mean, that's the kind of mentality these bastards had, and still have, the ones that exist today, and there's plenty of them around. The second and third generation of the Nazis.
This time around, we're going to take it in the shorts, although a lot of people don't believe it for the same reasons. Well, that can't possibly be blah, blah, blah. Just like people said in the 20s in Europe, that ain't going to happen to us. So that's another thing. But I will say...
It can't happen to us because we're Americans.
Yeah, we kick ass. We always win.
Yeah.
All right.
America, just like this guy we were talking about, Peters earlier. Peters, our American culture. We understand digital technology and American culture. We're putting it out all around the world. They all want to be American. They have no choice. We'll overwhelm them with our culture. Well, I don't think so.
No, we'll just go show up and go boo, and they're all for,
they've seen those videos, man.
We are being set up for an OK Corral in Eurasia, and going back to what I was saying is that I'm not even resorting to scripture in this one because the futuristic writers, I think, tapped into the dark side, and gave us a wink and nod, and that's what we can expect. But that also states that nothing happens from invaders and in this case we could talk about it being a Sino-Russia thing, it's not going to happen to the old world. Europe has been the controlling influence forever. The fact that we laugh at kings and queens, that's probably not a good idea, because they just were willing to sit in the background, but they're waiting again to come, just based on what you said also, because they believe they're in the Merovingian line and have the divine right to rule. So
and the Habsburgs were, very much the driving force behind the old Holy Roman Empire. They're still around. They're still powerful. They're still extremely wealthy.
No.
And I think they're, sitting there waiting for their turn.
And that time is at hand. Mm-hmm. So my point is, as far as I can see, Europe will not be they're not going to have a lot of problems. And then, of course, that force...
Well, I think we're being pushed by what I would call the Fourth Reich, the Underground Reich. I think we're being pushed by those forces into a situation where we are going to be pitted against the Russians. They've been wanting to do that for 67 years now, and they're just about to the point where they're going to do it.
All right.
They got rid of communism. Communism's gone.
Stop.
But Russia is still there. Look, Russia is still a powerful entity, and the United States and Russia are going to be pitted against each other.
Communism, in the true adjective form, not the proper noun. Communism is Catholic. It is universal. Yeah. That is where we're going.
It's feudalism, really.
Well, yeah, and the two brands of it that were represented by the Soviet Union or Russia, call it whatever you want, and China is still very well there. That is what is going to be the world we're going to. And the
other fascism, as represented by Italy and Germany, and in fascism light as it is in the United States, and it's going to be a little more fascism heavy. Both of those systems, what's really the New World Order is nothing more than a modern form of feudalism.
It is a conjoining of everything that you've ever said. I mean, we split hairs once in a while, but my point is, when it all finally gets amalgamated, what we're looking at is one big fat fascism / communism / godlessness. I mean, that's it.
Oligarchical collectivism. That's what.
And he was right.
And he was dead right.
And that's what we've got, and that's where we're going to.
And it is basically the modern form of feudalism, which you can call oligarchical collectivism. That was a very erudite way of saying it, but feudalism works for me.
Look, and I'm going to go into this tonight if I get a chance. I don't know. If not, I'll do it later. But the thing is this, and let's face it, human government is always a failed experiment. It just lasts a certain amount of time and something else happens.
That's because humans are failed, because humans have a fallen nature.
There you go. And the thing is, no matter what they want to call it, and you said early out, democracy. I equate democracy, and I think I am textbook and both in reality correct. I equate democracy with fascism because it's mob rule. Well, democracy has been spoken of in such high platitudes, but when you go down the root...
Democracy doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
It just doesn't.
It's a human thing, too.
In its purest form, you're right, it would be mob rule. They tried the idea of... Actually, the American government is supposed to be a republic, not a democracy, but we talk about democratic principles.
And democracy
so
all the time.
So it all gets bandied about, and the terminology really means nothing.
All right. Let me get to this last thing, and I want to address democracy. My point is, and I want to get your take on it.
Okay.
And I value what Charles said, and he makes a strong case for it. I just see, and I do give very heavy weight to the mortals who warned us, because I believe they knew. And that is, the Holy Roman Empire, the whole of Europe, will escape the scalding that's going to take place in World War III. However, in time, that power will move to Jerusalem to rule from that city.
Exactly.
And then Jesus is going to come down and take names and kick asses.
That's always been their plan, was to get back to Jerusalem,
to own
because of their belief in who and what they are.
That's the prize, is it not, Larry?
Exactly.
That's it. That's the jewel. That's all they're going for. And
they're going to rebuild the temple, and That's where the Antichrist, that bloodline, Grail bloodline sucker, will come in and declare himself to be God. And this will be called the abomination of desolation.
Well, I mean, we have no problem with that.
That's what the Bible says.
Well, I mean, and we have people that aren't going to give that any credit, and that's fine.
Sure.
But
I expect a lot of the things that, that we've been talking about today, we're probably going to get some people saying, you guys are really off the deep end, you're really whacked.
What a surprise.
With all these ideas. But,
tell me something I don't know.
Keep laughing because, I'm talking about them. Just keep laughing and watch as it all goes down.
All right.
And it's going to happen. I mean, I am totally convinced of that. I'll be honest with you. I don't know exactly how it's going to go down, but I know there's going to be a third world war that's going to bring in world government, and that's
there's no doubt about it.
One thing I'm sure of.
Without, I mean, after World War I, League of Nations. After World War II, United Nations. Okay. After World War III, you got the whole deal, man. I mean,
look at this country. Once the most prosperous nation on earth, now a country bereft of a manufacturing base. I mean, how long can that go on? How long can we continue like that?
As long as they want us to.
And the only thing we have going for us at this point is a powerful military.
I was thinking beer. I'm sorry.
And football.
And right now the AFL is playing. I mean, I'm sorry. There's no AFL. Oh, okay, it's the AFC.
You must be thinking of the AFL because you're talking to me.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I'm wearing my Oilers sweatshirt right now.
Are you? Are you really?
That's more info than you needed, right?
Dog. Oh, that hurts. But no, these are telling. Get back to seriousness. These are telling times. But the thing I have to admit, and I'm sorry, I've come to the conclusion that people can be manipulated any way they need to be. The thing is, can you keep any kind of clarity, regardless of, and this is very important, what might happen to yourself. There are people, I mean, when you know that if you go a certain way that something bad might happen to you, but if you're dealing with that kind of world, just as you said before, I mean, they're double crosses, and I mean, there's no safe haven. So you might as well go with what you believe to be the best. And that's a choice that a lot of people in America are going to make, and they're not really quite equipped to make that, and therefore you're going to see a population act not unlike others, but when they're up against the wall and the state's got a flashlight under their nose, they're going to go ahead and just flip and do what they have to do. Yeah, well, most people will go into survival mode, and they'll snitch, they'll spy. It's almost instinctive, And I mean, Hitler was big on fear, as a motivator. And using fear to, in the form of terrorism. Has it never not worked? It always works, and he said that. He was a keen observer of human nature and an evil SOB to the max. Also, I believe that, he was even more powerful because he was indwelled by a demonic spirit. You got it. He is a classic case of Marlowe, his Faustus, and the familiar spirit that was with him. Right. No doubt about it. And that's what they're all, invested with, and that's what we're facing today. But I want to say one thing as we get out of here, and we'll go back to your timeline, or the continuum as we've called it, and that is this. I just want to ask you this. Just think about it, and I'll come back to it. I'm going to table it tonight if I get a chance. I may not, but I want to, because to me, it's an aha moment for me, and that is this. Considering we're on the planet Earth, considering that our eternal spirit, from the time we were born, was housed in what we can call a decaying body, right? Right. Mine's really decaying. Oh, believe me, bro. Let me tell you. Oh, this is horrible. Oh man, I see my son, and he's visiting with me, and he's pumping weights. He has a set of weights that he left with me, and the guy's in great shape. He eats right. He looks great, and I'm thinking, it's been an awful long time since I felt that good and looked that good. Yeah, but the good thing is that your brain's intact enough to remember that that was the case.
I remember that.
But all right, here's where I'm going to go. This is my big aha. And I said this at the outset to a certain extent, and I think it should be mentioned here. And I'm going to run with this. And that is, I'm telling you, I mean, think about this truly.
Yeah.
And everybody out there, just consider it. Just listen to it. There is no such thing as freedom in the human experience. Freedom is an abstract concept that has been emblazoned in our brains by whatever civilization we've lived in.
Right.
And that gives us either a desire to maintain it when we think we have it, or get back to it when we think we've lost it. But what I'm saying is, look back in time. There was never that wonderful halcyon time. It never existed. It's only in our brains. And you, Larry, and me, and all of us who think we got it and probably do have it, we still hang on to that. And I'm just coming to the conclusion now that it never existed, but it's important for us to think that it did at some point backward, so that we want to get back to that time, but it's not there.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that this is like, equal to, E equals MC squared or something like that, but...
Well, it's pretty close, though.
I mean, but do you... but are we not... I mean...
Yeah, I mean, every culture and every culture has a belief system in what is freedom, I would think. I know that in America, we have had the concept that we are free, we are a free country, we are the leader of the free world, pounded into our heads from the time we were kids. Well, how free are you?
You're not.
You're in a certain amount of economic bondage, unless you're independently wealthy. And even if you're independently wealthy, you've still got, the state will still try to tax you. You can't be just totally, independent. But economically.
Let's acknowledge the fact that you and I, our parents, let's talk about, the 225 years or so of this country. Mm-hmm. And, we can say, for the most part, we've been okay. However, we know that there's been other, millions crushed under the system. We've never been in actual bondage in the fact that we have irons around us. Yeah. So we've had it much better, although that I believe that day is coming to an end. But my point is that really isn't freedom, because your freedom is only dictated by the lack of constraints that are upon you. Mm-hmm. In other words, they let you have it, but it really doesn't exist. You just are better off than someone else. So in the end, what I'm saying is, there is no such thing as freedom on a sin-cursed earth under Satan's power.
Exactly.
But here's the good point. For the moment, like we said, you were born. Your spirit is eternal. Your spirit was housed in a body that can't last all that long. Some, housings, last less than others. But no matter what, you're enslaved by your body. And I think we've talked about this too, and some others have emailed, really poignant emails saying, you're right. You look at the world through this pair of eyes, just like you do, and we remember stuff, and we are as young as we ever were in our heads. But then go to try to do something, you realize, oh, crap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You are.
It's like Rodney Dangerfield said when he dies, he was going to will his body to science fiction.
Best move ever. It's true. So my point is that freedom and liberty never exist on earth. They can't. They're concepts that we are allowed to ingrain in our psyches and minds, but they really don't exist. There are some forms that are worse for others. Like I said, we were never slavers and all that, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, it never did exist. And we're trying to get back to a moment, a period of time that, in fact, never existed.
It's kind of the concept of the two philosophical concepts of free will versus determinism. I mean, what you're saying from the rap that you're giving me there is that to some extent everything is determined. you can make choices, but you don't have. They're not totally of your own volition because there are consequences that are involved that would force you to make certain choices, and that you don't have total free will.
Well, how about you? Here's my point. You just hit it. The thing is, we think we have total free will. That's right. The canard.
No, you really don't. I've had long arguments with people about the concept of determinism versus free will.
Right.
No philosophical argument, but they're just. I mean, I can only do certain things within certain parameters just based on my physical body.
All right. But let me ask you this, because this is where I believe everything meets. Okay. Here's the point. We understand election. That's a hard thing to sell to people, is it not? Okay? But here's what I think happens. There's a duality here. Mm-hmm. And I'm not making excuses. I believe it's true. The Lord knows all. The Lord knows exactly what you're going to do. Okay? Does he not?
Mm-hmm. Exactly, yeah.
All right. He knows exactly what's going to happen.
But he doesn't force you to do things one way or the other. He allows you to have free will.
Well, here's the thing. He stands back. But he understands all that will happen.
Right.
We don't. So
right.
We think we have free will in the sense we do to make the choice or not. Where I think the problem comes is that the Lord understands there are some, well, let's put it this way. Everything is predestined, but we don't know it. That's the point.
Yeah.
He understands it. He knows it, but we don't. So we get to work out whatever we have to. And I know that's a really hard doctrine for a lot of people to bite on. I mean, I understand that too, but I think where it's fair is we play out our lives as he allows us to do so, but he understands as the grand chess master what happens in the end. Then I understand that it is true that there is election and predestination. However, right. He allows us, or we are veiled from knowing what choices we're going to make. Mm-hmm. I know that's sticky water there and all that stuff, but the thing is, we work our salvation out, or we don't, with fear and trembling. He knows all, so that's why he can say, you were elected, but we don't know we're elected. We don't have that influence, and therefore we're allowed, if you will, to work it out ourselves. Some come, most don't. That's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, it's something I think about a lot. What is freedom? It's just basic philosophy. What is God? What is the nature of God? What really is behind all of it of human existence? These are big concepts for me.
It is, but you know what? It is for
very big concepts.
It is for all of us. But the way I find that it works is that we are allowed to go about our business.
Right.
He is a creator who's also able to avail himself from things at certain times, which I think, Paul kind of chides me for this, Sandhu, but I believe in Jeremiah when the Lord says, never did it enter my mind that you would do this. That's the Lord speaking. He knows everything, but we can't fathom, somebody who made us. We can't get into that brain. And so if somebody knows something without all right, if we, where that's going to go, okay?
Yeah.
It's like he allows himself not to know, but he knows all. We can't even go there. But for us, what my point is...
Well, knowing the mind of God is impossible.
It's impossible.
And the one concept that always blows me away, and if I sit and think about it very long, I just get completely confused.
Who am I?
I don't know what the term would be, but it's the idea that God is eternal, that God has always existed
before
and always will exist. And people say, well, that's ridiculous. There could be no entity like that. Well,
I know.
These are the same people that believe the universe has always existed and always will. I'm saying, well, there has to be a cause and effect. What caused the universe?
Let me ask you this. When you were in elementary school, and I mean this because this is when I had some of these moments, I just remember them as being those moments. And I'll tell you, one was at first grade. Mm. I, for whatever reason, in my daydreams in the classroom or whatever, I try to figure out who started this all? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Life. And, who am I? And how do I know that he's really there or whatever? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I remember doing that, and it is absolutely maddening. And to this day, sometimes I look at him going, well, and of course, agnostics and atheists or whatever they are would say, well, how can you, they feel you have to rationalize everything. And I understand that. That would make sense if it were accounting, in business and stuff like that, but we're not talking about that. But it is an impossible concept to embrace.
Mm-hmm.
What did he create, and what would what would have been if he weren't here? It's impossible. Isn't it? It's just impossible.
Right.
And I think about that stuff. I think it's kind of important in a sense because we all have our doubts and such. But in the end, especially because, I've gotten back in the Word and I'm reading it, although it may not show. But I just need to be sat down and talked to, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I believe it's important for everybody because we're coming to a moment which I can't think, inarguably, no matter how you feel, we're coming to a certain kind of cataclysm.
Yeah. Which leads me to a question that I've been wanting to ask that's apropos. Have you spoken to Kathleen?
Yeah, I have.
How are things going with her?
Apparently okay, and thank you for asking, and she'll appreciate that, and I'll email her.
I really love Kathleen. She's a good Christian sister. I really do.
Neither you nor I have the balls that she had to go where she went.
That is a woman with great courage, and that comes from faith. That comes from being.
Yep.
Some people stand in better with the Lord than others, if you understand what I mean.
She has been the gift of great belief and courage. And let's put it this way, the understanding that you may not make it back, but for what cause would be better to sacrifice one's life.
Yeah.
She did it. We think about it. She did it. So anyway, I don't know how deep she got into whether she went to Pakistan or not. I kind of think she did. But she told me, and again, like I said, thank you for asking, on January 21st, we're, I think, supposed to talk, doing an interview with her in Europe on her way back. And that is if everything goes okay. But, yeah, we pale in her efforts because she is sold out to Jesus Christ without a doubt. And, the spiritual muscle she has makes us look like the 58-pound weakling on the beach.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. She's there. We're not.
Yeah.
So anyway, she's supposed to tap in. I said to her, I don't Skype. I said, I don't really want to do that, but I do have a calling card. I said, which I just, checked, and it's very active, and I use this for mainly for foreign interviews, of which I do not do any anymore. And she said she'll be back in the room on January 21st, and I said, let's get that done. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
All roads lead to Rome.
It's funny how that works out that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. It really does. In more than one way, not just in physical.
No, but in the grand scope of things, it does. There's a symmetry.
It really does. You can, people can say what they want, but the influence of Rome on the history of the world is just enormous, and it still is today.
And lastly, thanks for coming on and obliging me, because I like to do stuff during the diurnal day, and I appreciate that. I do. But Ronald Lee Claxton, I think, is on to something very important. Mm-hmm. And he writes me all the time, and he is constantly, and I believe truthfully so. Mm-hmm. Like, look, I'm hitting stuff that I'm not really comfortable with, but I'm not doing this to become some kind of sensational something or other. He goes, I'm just finding this stuff out. Can I share it? And I'm like, yeah. And to me, in this case, I let a Twyman come on. Do I care about it? Absolutely not. But for a gentleman like this and other people who come this way, it's like, no, I know your heart, and it's all right. Let's talk this thing over. And that's what I said to him. Don't worry about it. Put the stuff out. You're broken to the Christ. I understand it. Just share it. If I thought you were whack-a-ding-ahoy, you wouldn't be around.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of times when I think what's important on the show, and it seems to be coming together now, is that you have people that have niches. People that have a area.
That's right.
Yeah, and mine is, the whole Nazi thing, and then of course you've got Andy Colvin. He's got his thing, and I guess in one way Kathleen has
as a part of the puzzle.
And now this fellow Claxton.
And I'll tell you, if you haven't listened, and it's okay if you haven't, but I would ask you to do so.
No, I did listen. I enjoyed it.
And I've
never heard anything quite like it.
You know what? Here's what I feel is happening here. He's somebody who's following something he thinks he should, and when he hits it, it's like, oh no, no, and and I can deal with that because that's the way I would be. It's like, oh, I don't want this to be true, and although he's allowing stuff for error, it's okay. And I just said, look, we'll deal with it. We'll deal with it. Just come out with it because, to me, and what he said was interesting. Also, he said, in a way, he said, and of course, he's not known me through all these years, but he said, what I've found pulls together what the informer is talking about, what Montgomery has been talking about, what John Ackerman is talking about, and it all seems, just like you said, and maybe we can agree on this, that there may be a point now where there's going to be a convergence, and it's like, some folks are going to go that way, and some folks are going to go that way. And perhaps some of these individuals are being used for such to say, yes, all we've known and what the Bible says is true.
Well, I know with with Kathleen, some of my babblings, I'm doing the best I can, and some of it apparently struck a chord with her, and I'm glad it did, Yeah. And she wanted to come on and talk about it, and I think that. When you hear something that another individual is coming up with and saying, I think it's like this, and this is what I see, and this is my research, and they go, well, yeah, that's right. I see that myself, and we're all kind of struggling to get more information and to put more information out there to others of like mind. And I believe, and I'm sure at some point in time that I know that the Lord wants us to do this. I really do. I mean, I wouldn't be doing it otherwise.
Okay.
And I don't really think you would anymore. No. I mean, there was a time when you were probably into being a radio host, and having a show for entertainment, as a profession. But now it's more you're doing it because you do what you want to do on the show, and you reach the audience that you want to reach.
I'll agree to that. Yeah. No, I stand corrected and convicted, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I think, though, that for those who have ears to hear, eyes to see, that there is a convergence here, without a doubt. I think what Ronnie Lee is talking about is very accurate, and I see him as somebody just like ourselves. So like, oh man, I stumbled upon this stuff. Sometimes I wish I hadn't, and we're going to work that out. But the time is at hand. There's no two ways about it. And you're right. I mean, there was a time during the Beyond the Grassy Knoll days to which we both refer, where I was like an entertainment jukebox, like Dick Clark. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
And I hated it, and I burnt it, and rightfully so. And now, there's no two ways about it. It's like, look, you know it, and I know it. 1% of 1% are going to understand. Are going to believe, and that's it. That's all there's going to be. You go ahead and you broadcast, and you do whatever you can. You scatter shot whatever you got.
Right.
But in the end, it's always the smallest. But that's not why you're doing it. You're doing it because you're supposed to.
Right.
And so that's it. You're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, you were there through all stuff.
Gordon has a niche. He goes out and finds these old books that have been memory hold. I listened to the last broadcast. That was very interesting to me. The things he'd found out about Tammany Hall.
Yeah.
And that was a very interesting show, and it was apropos,
Yeah, and
it has meaning today. It's not just, some old boring history. It was a very good, and there's a reason why that book got memory hold, because it told the truth about the American political process by a guy who was a muckraker, investigative journalist of his day. The same thing with Seldes. He went out, he asked me about Seldes. I didn't know how to really obtain, any of Seldy's work, but Gordon went out and just pursued it and bulldogged it until he got a copy of one of the books that I can't remember which one it was now, but it was one that was basically out of print. It took him a while, but he got it. And I mean, he makes good use of those things.
You know, and Andy Sr. also brought us stuff about Albert Nock.
Oh, I love that guy. Andy Sr. is great. He's so funny. He's just a great guy.
No, I tell you what. I think the greatest antidote is humor.
Exactly.
And he has an incisive side. And, I mean, he's the one that turned us on to Albert Nock, who's another one that was saying, the Constitution guys, I mean, come on, give me a break, you know? And so Andy pulled that gem out, and that's what people do, you know, and that's what we're trying to present.
Right.
It's not pretty, but it is the way it is. If that's interesting, if that is interesting and important to you, understand what's going on, that you can't change it terrestrially or in the flesh. Yeah, that's probably true, but this ain't the end of the line for all our spirits. And that's where I was going with before, and that is, you know, when our spirits were, however that happens through conception, were enclosed by a body, we were enslavement to a certain degree. It's kind of cool for some, you know, for a lot of people, but for some, and you know, I mean, illness happens, lives are cut short, you know, but the point is, there is no true freedom, but there will be after this time, and that's where it's going to make all the difference. You know, people either buy into that or they don't. But I am. And, I mean, I got myself scared straight probably a couple of years ago, which you were probably on hand to watch. Mm. And I said to myself, you know, that was my first love, and I've turned away from it. And, you know, I got a come to Jesus meeting, and I'm like, yeah, all right. And so now, you know, that's where we're at. These are interesting times, but now they're being very accelerated. And there'll not be much hidden much longer. But the point is, if you get entrapped, you'll probably not be able to extricate yourself, and you probably won't. I don't know what that means necessarily, except that you're not going to find a solution any longer in humanity. It's not going to happen. Sorry, but it's just not going to.
No, that's the whole point. Is you know, the greatest lie ever told by Satan was that we could be as gods. He told that to Eve in the garden. That was, you know. That we could be gods, and we can't. We're not gods. We're not ever going to be gods.
Right.
You know, we're spiritual beings, and God is our Father. You know, and once you know they have the knowledge of good and evil, you know.
That was it.
That was it.
Game, set, match.
Yeah.
And I'll say one other thing too, in deference to those who were younger. Some who, like we were in 20s, talk too much and listen too little. Who get too smart too late and too old too soon, and that is the whole progression of life. But you know, you and myself and others of our age cohort, I'll have to say this: there's a double-edged blessing going on here. And I'll be honest with you. You know, and I know that as these years go by, the main thing is that, you know, are we going to get sick? Are we going to have cancer? Are we going to have to deal with this? And so that when you're dealing with fatality, the New World Order doesn't mean jack crap. You know what I mean? So for us, the old bohemians, you know, we can kind of give up stuff because we know either way it's over with. You know what I mean?
Right.
For those who are younger, I try not to necessarily temper what we have to say.
Well, they see themselves as having a lot more to lose.
But don't they? I mean, in a sense, they do.
And they do, yeah.
Yeah.
But you and I are, you know, coming into the latter part of our lives, you know.
Yeah, we played all the bingo we wanted to.
Yeah. You know, we're in the home stretch now, and it's like, well, you know, that worked, this didn't work, that was cool, that wasn't cool. You know, you see all these things in retrospect, you know, but you know, they still want to experience, you know, the fullness of life, and I can't say I blame them. That's, you know, life's for living and, you know, for learning and et cetera, but there comes a point to which you begin to sort out what's really important. And, you know, your relationship with God is the most important thing. Your family is next, you know, and there's a certain list of priorities, but those are the two most important ones. You know, I mean, there's no question to me that my relationship with God is the most important thing in life. but my family's got to come next. I mean, I can't see anything more important than that. And there are a lot of people that just haven't come down to that, where they're still, I know when it's just one of those things for, especially for young men, to be self-absorbed, and hedonistic. And that's just not the way to live.
Oh, I never was.
Oh, no. Well, got those emails this week with joking about those things in those times.
I'll tell you what.
Coyote Ugly and all.
Yes. Yes. Anybody who's keeping a notebook, that'll be great. But I'll be honest with you, and I'll end on this, and I'm going to let you have the last salvo, and we'll get together next week, Lord willing, and I think he'll will that. But there was a time, the tale of Faust always interested me because it was this deal with him and the devil, depending on what you get from Marlowe or Goethe, whatever, and that was if you've given everything, if you reach a time, and I think I have this straight, where you don't want to go further, Satan will grab your soul. But the character, Faust, or Faustus, said, if you give me, complete run, I'll never find a time I want to last. I'll tell you this, and I'm not proud of it, but in 1975, I actually stood before a mirror in my bedroom. Whatever I was or I wasn't, fine. But I mean, I had 4-0'd all my semesters. I was just because I was such an idiot in the first 2 years, I got magna cum laude. I had a 35-game hitting streak. I had everything I wanted and no shortage of females. And I looked in the mirror, and I remember this precisely. I looked in the mirror and I said, "This is not right. This is not the way it's supposed to be."
There was something missing. There was something that was essential that was missing, and I guess we've all experienced that one way or the other.
All right.
I say all of us. I'm talking about Christians.
No, and I think back to the tales of Faust and Faustus, and I understand it. That there was a deal being brokered before me that would give me exactly what I wanted. And if I want to go down that road, I would have had every hedonistic thing I wanted. But for a certain time, let's remember, there's always a betrayal at the end. Yeah. But I remember looking in the mirror and going, "No, this is not right. This is not right." And I remember saying that the more that I grabbed for the stimuli, right, whether it's sex or whatever it was, the more I grabbed for it, the less it meant, and the more it made me want to grab for more. Do you know what I mean? Because I was losing per incident, if you will, which is a horrible way to put it, the bang, which is another one. And I just said, but you know what? I mean, it took me another 5 years until I got put back on my rear end, and Jehovah looked at me and said, "Can we talk now?" And I'm really thankful that he sat me down in that stinking, rotten gas station in the middle of Pennsylvania on a horrible night. And I'm like, "Thank you. I'm lucky, I guess." We don't want to talk about luck, but that's just the way it is. I mean. Well,
God loves all of us, and He has a plan for our lives. I believe that. I think the Bible shows that. The problem is so often that we are so knot-headed that it takes an awful long time before we get it, and we start trying to live that life in that plan that God has for us.
Neil Young sang, "Rust never sleeps." And if you can get outside just the lyrics of that, think about that.
Yeah.
Because everything in nature erodes.
Everything breaks down.
Right. Whatever is good gets corrupted. I mean, if you had a cable package in 1990, probably it sucks more and costs you more now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, but I know this is trite, but you know what I'm saying? It's that whatever is, from the moment that it is, starts to become.
Well, it's just like when you buy a new car. If you keep it for several years, you see it deteriorate.
It just is, but that's the way of the world.
And you try your best. I mean, most young guys especially would try their best to keep it clean and keep it waxed up and keep it looking good and running good. But, I mean, eventually the engine breaks down. The paint job starts to deteriorate everything. The interior gets a little funky, and, it's just one of those things.
I have a pickup now that's 11 years old with 110 on it.
Yeah.
And the two unfortunates that were in that truck were Jeff Long and Gordon. And both of them just laughed their asses off as we went flying down country dirt roads with, long necks between our legs. Because there are no traffic lights on dirt roads. And the thing is that I got that little heap out there. If I were to wash it now, that truck would come apart because it's all, you know what I mean? And it's like, folks, that's the way it is, you know.
Oh, man.
But the thing is that everything moves toward erosion from the moment that it is begotten. That's that's universe. That's physics. That's okay. It's entropy. We understand it.
You know, it's like that old song, you know, why am I dying to live when I'm just living to die? You know? And, you know, it's a little more pessimistic than I want to be. I mean, being a Christian, but there is a good point behind that.
Well, if it helps anybody in the Northeast, Springsteen said the same thing. You know what I mean? And but it's a factor of life. I mean, that's the way it goes. Nothing can stay pristine. It just does not happen. And that's when I started to say, you know, there was no such thing as freedom. That we always think about it as a time when back then, and it's like, well, there was no back then, because back then sucked too. It's just that.
Well, it's like you're saying, though, you know, I kind of do it as well as yourself. You go a retreat around the holidays and kind of live in your, you know, your little cocoon of, you know, happy
memories.
ever
That's
after,
right.
and leave it to Beaverland, you know. But I do it too because it's comfortable for me to do that, and I need a little bit of a rest, you know, a vacation into that leave it to Beaver world, you know.
I will admit that, and people would say to me, well, aren't you the biggest principle of going back in time and thinking that was, and I admit it. And when I did that audio just recently, the Not Quite Perfect Christmas, I said at the end, you know, I remember it better than it should be, but you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way.
Exactly.
However, I understand the reality of it. It is just a place. It's a cotton bed where I lay for a while just to do it, and I get back up and say, okay, here's life again. And I understand it, and that's all that it is.
There's times when people just need to rest, you know, psychologically, or even sometimes physically need to rest, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
And to kind of renew yourself. Every time that, you know, that happens, it seems, you know, I've observed in you, you know, you're recharged, you're ready to go. You know, you seem happier and more energy. And that's good, man. What's wrong with that? I mean, everybody needs that. I'm
going to mention, this is going to be a shout-out to, and we'll call it a day. And again, thanks for coming on and shifting the schedule. I really appreciate it.
No problem. I'm enjoying it.
And so am I, believe me. Otherwise, you know, I mean, I want to hang on to this for as long as we can. Gene from Kirkland, and this is sweet. This is cool, and this is probably the last holiday thing. Here's the other thing.
There's a guy with some energy. Gene comes on. He's talking fast.
I'll tell you what.
New York thing.
he has written, as well as Kira. I mean, the two of them are like they complement one another, though they're, you know, millennia apart and light years away and all that, and one's in Pennsylvania, one's in Brooklyn. But they both bring something to the table. But I tell you, lately, Eugene has really sent some stuff along it's quite revelatory, and he's a very big defender of the Informer at a time now where you don't really know this is going on. And maybe you do to a certain extent, but you know, these little jackals now are yipping at his feet like he's bogus. It's horrible. But then again, whatever you have that's good will eventually, somebody will go after it.
Yeah.
But anyway, what he did was, my father and his two first cousins, who were his brothers in his upbringing, always went to a wonderful Italian seafood place in Sheepshead Bay. And
I wish I was there.
Oh, man. I mean,
Italian food.
Let me tell you, this is out of The Godfather. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, this is the best. And anyway, that ended in time, obviously. Two of the three are deceased, and one is, you know, in his 90s. But I had mentioned it, and Eugene went ahead and found the place and took photos of it. And the neat thing about this is he sent duplicates to me. And my sister, who's 8 years older than I, and obviously had a longer relationship with my dad.
Yeah.
And our first cousin, who was the daughter of one of the three who has passed away, not the daughter, but the dad, I get to send them along. And that's like what the whole holiday thing is about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I've always said. It's like counting the empty chairs and seeing everybody who have to recede in the mist once, Christmas Day is over. And so I just want to say that, you're right. And I like it like that. And I appreciate that Gene set that stuff along, because that goes on to, not only my sister and her husband, but, our cousin and stuff. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, he stepped up and did that. And I'm like, holy mackerel, it's going to bring some tears and some smiles, to my cousin and both my sister. And really, in the end, I mean, that's all it's about. It really is all that it's about. We have to deal with everything, but there's nothing stopping us from times going back and tapping our supposed little, like you said, Leave It to Beaver days. That to me is a pretty healthy strategy, if you will, that we don't need psychologists for, or Prozac or any of that crap. Yeah, it's a good place to recharge your batteries and say, okay, even if it was really that way, we're going to just agree that it was. So. Well,
I can create that little world in my mind, and I felt really comfortable over the holidays, with my mom, and spent a lot of time with her, and of course my sister,
and
the rest of my family, and we all got together a couple of times here and there, and it was just really good, and really comfortable for me, and because I fit in, I know everybody, and I accept them. They love me. They know my faults, and vice versa. But they still love me and care about me, and it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot.
We all need it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I guess it only happens once a year. And like I told you, I mean, I have constructed this thing. I only did it a couple of years ago, but
right.
Don't talk to me, from Thanksgiving till New Year's Day.
I don't have a problem with it. I get it. I get it totally.
Yeah,
I did kind of the same thing, only maybe a little bit longer than yourself.
Okay, there you go. Oh, and I won't say this tonight because I probably won't get it on the air. Yeah. Anybody who's lasted through this whole audio that we've just done, I think that this is worth telling you. Okay. Now, on New Year's Eve, we had our venison instead of gator pizza, right?
Yeah.
Well, that stuff backed up my hole. And, I mean, I'm in bed with Lady Viz, and she's cutting Z's, and I'm like, "Rrrp." And, I mean, it was bad. I mean, it was, the furnace was coming up through the ducts. Now, here's what happened.
Oh, my God.
And I was so looking forward to that. I have no idea why that happened, but here's where we go. We have a neighbor who has watched my back, a single woman, 60-something or whatever, and just a really good neighbor. When Dumbhead comes in and forgets to put his lights on his truck, she comes over and says, "Your lights are on." And, so anyway, what we did was we gifted her with this box of you guys aren't probably familiar with this, but we have kumquat trees here in Florida.
Uh-huh.
And they make jams out of it and barbecue sauce. Oh, it's the best. And a former coworker of mine works in that company. She's actually family. So anyway, here's what happens. I can't sleep. It's Christmas Eve. I now say, the heck with this. I know my neighbor gets up at 5 a.m. in the morning. So now it's 4 o'clock. And we, Lady Viz made this box and put a bow on it and all this stuff and a card. And I figured, why not deliver it to our neighbor's door? So when Christmas Day comes, she opens it up and bang, there it is. Mm-hmm. So I take it and I walk out. I put it on their stoop and I think I'm hearing something.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, what this is about. And I'm being serious as a heart attack. I am not exaggerating. So I'm like, okay, what is this? And, where we are, I mean, who could be out there?
Yeah.
I walk outside looking to see if there's some kids that I have to punch upside the head, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I kid you not, across the road before my eyes went 2 deer.
Yeah.
Scuttling along. And the first thing, now just dig this, it's Christmas Eve. The first thing in my mind was, where's the sled? It was beautiful. You know what I mean? And I just watched those, those beautiful beings who try to live and do so successfully in this, ever expanding megalopolis.
Yeah.
And for that time, I'm like, wow, that is cool. But I had to laugh because I'm like, I saw them going, oh, please don't let there be another 5 in a sleigh. I'm never going to be able to explain this. And that was just the best. Anyway, so that's how, despite my, my furnace belching and stuff like that, that's how my Christmas Eve ended and my Christmas Day started. And I'll never forget that because it was like for a moment I'm like, oh, man, don't tell me this is real. And my neighbor still doesn't know we gave her this stuff. So anyway, get lost.
Okay.
We've got football games to watch.
Yeah.
And ass to kick before this night is over.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you. And
sure, no problem.
I'm just thinking if we go through like 2012, you'll be up to like part 80. I'm going to die before you're done. All right?
Oh, man, I don't know. Just keeps going, I guess.
Yeah. Think about that, will you?
Yeah.
And as always, Eeyore, I appreciate I appreciate you being here, and apparently so do others. So, even if it's only the madness between the two of us, there's actually people out there who are tapping into it. And I'm thinking
I really enjoyed getting that email, or several
nice,
of the emails.
Yeah, there was several.
Yeah. They liked it. And it was really cool. The guy was sending, I guess it's a guy, sent an email saying that
confirming
they ran into a PDF of Otto Strasser's book, Hitler and I, and that Strasser verified that Bernard Stampfel, the Jesuit priest, actually wrote Mein Kampf. That's the 4th source that I've found that says that.
All right. That's key. So you have 4 sources that said Adolf probably didn't do it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, he had input, obviously. I'm sure that or Stampfel would talk to him, interview him about things. But Stampfel put it together.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, if he was going to be the mouthpiece for it, no, he was drilled. He knew what was going on.
Here, tell me what happened here in Vienna. Tell me what happened in Munich, and I'll put this book together.
Yeah, and a shout out to Kelly for sending it along, for having you back. That was cool.
Yeah.
All right, I'll talk. I'm having heartburn right now. I'll talk to you next week.
Okay.
All right. God bless you. Yeah,
right.
I appreciate it, and we'll work it out.
Okay. No problem, man.
All right. See you later.
Yeah.
Go Texans.
Bye.
Don't hang up. You hung up.